Hi everyone, welcome to Ben 10 What Ifs. Please support us by liking and subscribing. Let's begin.
What if Ben 10 was in Black Clover Universe Chapter 1, Stranger in a Strange Land? Ben Tennyson was having the worst day ever, and considering his life, that was saying something. Come on, Omnitrix. Work with me here. Ben shouted, slapping the green watch-like device on his wrist as he dodged an energy blast that scorched the pavement behind him. The alien pursuing him looked like a walking black hole with arms, literally. Its body rippled with dark energy that bent light around it, and every time it gestured, reality itself seemed to tear. Seriously, of all the days for Gwen and Kevin to be out of town, Ben muttered, diving behind a parked car as another blast disintegrated a mailbox. The creature's voice distorted the air. The Omnitrix, human. Give it to me, and your world remains intact. Yeah, heard that one before. Ben called out, finally getting the Omnitrix to light up. Never works out for you guys. He slammed his hand down on the activated device, feeling the familiar rush of transformation energy. His body stretched and hardened as orange fur sprouted across his form. Wrath. Ben roared in his new form, muscles bulging as he leaped over the car. Let me tell you something, dimension-hopping space freak. Nobody threatens Wrath's planet. The tiger-like alien charged forward, claws extended. The dimensional alien shifted backward, tearing a small rift in space that Wrath's fist disappeared into. What the? Wrath began, before feeling his arm exit from another portal behind his head, nearly punching himself. The dimensional alien laughed, a sound like static on an old TV. Your primitive transformations are no match for a Chronosian. I exist in multiple realities at once. Wrath doesn't care how many realities you're in. Ben shouted, pulling his arm free and charging again. This time, the alien created multiple rifts, each showing glimpses of different worlds, a desert planet, an ocean world, a city engulfed in flames. Ben dodged through them, focused on his target. The Chronosian's eyes flashed. Fascinating device. It contains DNA from across the universe. Perhaps across universes. When Wrath finally connected with a solid hit, the Chronosian staggered back, its form rippling dangerously. But instead of falling, it raised both hands, creating the largest portal yet. If I cannot take it from you here, perhaps another reality will prove more accommodating. The Omnitrix on Wrath's chest suddenly began flashing yellow. That's not good. Unknown dimensional energy detected, the Omnitrix announced in Asmatha's voice. Attempting to compensate. The Chronosian's portal and the Omnitrix's energy flared simultaneously, creating a feedback loop that expanded the rift until it enveloped Ben completely. Not cool, were the last words Ben shouted before the portal collapsed, leaving an empty street and a very confused Chronosian staring at the spot where its quarry had been. Falling through dimensions felt like being simultaneously stretched and compressed. Colors Ben couldn't even name flashed past his vision. The Omnitrix sparked wildly against his chest. He'd reverted to human form during the transit, and for a moment, Ben thought the device might actually break. Then, with a thunderous crack, he hit solid ground. Ow, Ben groaned, blinking up at an unfamiliar sky. Weirdly blue, but definitely a sky. Good start. At least I'm still breathing. He sat up slowly, assessing his surroundings. Trees, grass, dirt path, looked Earth-like enough, though something felt different. The air almost seemed to tingle against his skin, charged with an energy he couldn't identify. Omnitrix, status report? Ben asked, tapping the device. No response. Great, he muttered, pushing himself to his feet. Interdimensional travel is officially on my never again list. Right after fighting zombie clowns. A distant scream interrupted his complaints. Ben's head snapped toward the sound. Through the trees, about half a mile away, smoke rose from what looked like a small village. Without hesitation, he started running toward it. Just once, he panted as he ran, I'd like to land somewhere nice. Like a beach resort. Or a smoothie convention. As Ben crested a hill, he got his first clear view of the village, and the massive creature terrorizing it. The thing looked like someone had crossed a gorilla with a scorpion, added horns, and painted the whole mess purple. It towered over the thatched roof buildings, smashing them with massive clawed hands while people fled in terror. Hero time, Ben said automatically, activating the Omnitrix. To his relief, the device lit up, though the holographic display flickered erratically. Beggars can't be choosers. He slammed his palm down, feeling the transformation take hold. His body expanded enormously, skin hardening into brownish-orange scales as his strength multiplied. Humongosaur. Ben roared, now a 12-foot dinosaur-like alien. He flexed his massive hands. Okay, not what I was going for, but this works. He charged down the hill toward the village, where the monster had cornered several villagers against a stone wall. Just as it raised a massive claw to strike, Ben tackled it from the side, sending them both crashing through an already damaged building. Pick on someone your own size. Ben shouted, delivering a powerful uppercut to the creature's jaw. The monster roared, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. It lashed out with its tail, catching Ben across the chest and sending him stumbling backward. The villagers scattered, staring at both giants with equal terror. Okay, so you're strong, Ben grunted, digging his feet into the ground to stop his slide. But I'm guessing you're not too bright. The creature charged again, but this time Ben was ready. He sidestepped, grabbed the monster's arm, and used its momentum to throw it into the village square's stone fountain. Water and rubble exploded outward as the creature howled in rage. Ben noticed something strange, a dark, smoky aura seemed to surround the monster, intensifying when it roared. Definitely not normal, even by his standards. What are you? He muttered. The monster's answer was to slam both fists into the ground. The earth cracked and split toward Ben, who barely jumped aside in time. As he landed, he noticed the villagers weren't just running away anymore, some were actually fighting back. A man with a staff raised it, and to Ben's shock, a fireball launched from its tip toward the creature. An elderly woman nearby clapped her hands, and vines erupted from the ground to entangle the monster's legs. Magic? Ben said aloud, momentarily distracted. That moment of inattention cost him as the creature broke free and charged again, this time catching Ben with a full-body tackle that sent them both rolling through the village and into a field beyond. Ben managed to get on top and pinned the monster down. Stay down. I don't want to hurt you more than I have to. The creature's only response was to open its mouth wide and blast Ben with a stream of dark energy that burned even Humongosaur's tough hide. Ben roared in pain but maintained his grip. Fine, have it your way. Ben raised his fist, ready to end the fight with one powerful blow. Devil! The shout came from behind him, followed immediately by the sensation of something incredibly sharp slicing across his back. Ben roared in pain and whirled around to face this new threat. A short, muscular teenager with spiky ash-blonde hair stood in a fighting stance, wielding a massive black sword. His expression was fierce, green eyes blazing with determination. Most strikingly, he wore a black robe with gold trim and some kind of three-leaf clover insignia. Get away from the village, you oversized demon, the boy shouted. Ben raised his hands. Wait. I'm not the bad guy here. The boy didn't seem convinced. He charged forward with surprising speed for someone his size, sword raised. Ben barely managed to dodge the swing, which cut through a tree behind him like it was paper. Whoa! I'm trying to help. Ben protested. That thing was attacking the village. Save your lies. The boy leaped impossibly high, bringing his sword down. I can sense your weird mana. Ben rolled away from the strike, which left a crater in the earth. My what now? Look, I don't know what's going on, but, his explanation was cut short as the forgotten monster used their distraction to recover and charge at both of them. Watch out! Ben shouted, pushing the sword-wielding teen aside and taking the brunt of the attack himself. The monster's claws dug into Ben's scaled hide as they tumbled across the field. Pain flared through him, but he managed to get his feet under the creature and kick it away. To Ben's surprise, the boy was right back in the fight, attacking the monster with his oversized sword. The dark aura around the creature seemed to dissipate whenever the black blade made contact. That sword. It's affecting that energy somehow, Ben observed aloud. The boy glanced back at Ben, confusion momentarily replacing hostility. It's anti-magic. Wait, you can see the demon's mana? Before Ben could respond, the monster recovered and charged again, this time aiming for the sword wielder. Ben reacted instinctively, stepping between them and catching the creature's claws with his bare hands. I don't know what mana is, Ben grunted, muscles straining as he held the monster back, but I know when something's trying to hurt innocent people. And I don't let that happen. Something in his words seemed to reach the boy, whose expression shifted. Behind me, the teen commanded, readying his sword. Ben nodded and, with a massive heave, lifted the creature over his head and threw it directly toward the boy. In one fluid motion, the swordsman swung, his black blade cleaving through the monster's dark aura. The creature shrieked, then dissolved into a cloud of dark particles that dissipated in the wind. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the boy lowered his sword, though he kept it ready. You're not a devil, he said, more statement than question. Ben shook his head. Name's Ben. Ben Tennyson. And you are? Asta, Magic Knight of the Black Bulls. The boy, Asta, squinted at him. What kind of transformation magic is that? I've never seen anything like it. Ben opened his mouth to explain when the Omnitrix symbol on his chest started flashing red. You might want to step back. This could get weird. A flash of red light enveloped Ben, and when it faded, he stood there in his human form, jeans, white shirt with a black stripe, brown hair, and the Omnitrix on his wrist. Completely normal 16-year-old Ben. Asta's jaw dropped. What the? Your magic just disappeared. Ben rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, about that. It's not exactly magic. And I think I'm really, really far from home. The walk back to the village was awkward. Asta kept a safe distance, stealing glances at Ben and his Omnitrix. So let me get this straight, Asta said after Ben gave him the abbreviated version of his story. You're from another world where you have a device that lets you turn into different creatures, and you accidentally got transported here while fighting some space monster. Pretty much, Ben confirmed. Though where I come from, we don't have magic. Or demons. Or whatever that thing was. Asta scratched his head. Man, and people think my story is weird. When they reached the village, Ben was surprised to find the villagers already rebuilding. Men and women used what was unmistakably magic to lift heavy beams, repair thatched roofs, and heal the injured. They're using magic like it's nothing, Ben observed. Asta snorted. Well, yeah. Everyone has magic. Except me. Ben turned to him in surprise. You don't have magic. But that sword, anti-magic, Asta corrected. I was born without any magic in a world where that basically makes you worthless. But I'm going to become the Wizard King anyway. The declaration was so earnest and enthusiastic that Ben couldn't help but smile. Wizard King, huh? Sounds important. Only the strongest magic knight in the kingdom, Asta confirmed, grinning widely. That's my dream. An elderly woman approached them, bowing deeply. Thank you for saving our village, Sir Knight. And your unusual friend as well. Asta waved his hands frantically. No need to bow. It's our duty as magic knights. The woman pressed a small basket of fruits into their hands regardless. Please, accept this small token. We don't have much, but we share what we can. As they accepted the gift, Ben noticed the respectful way the villagers treated Asta despite his youth. The black bull's clover on his robe seemed to carry significant meaning here. So these magic knights, Ben said as they walked toward the edge of the village. They protect people from monsters like that one? Asta nodded, biting into an apple from the basket. Devils, bandits, anyone who threatens the Clover Kingdom. We're divided into squads based on a test you take when you turn 15. I'm in the Black Bulls, we're kind of the misfits of the Magic Knights. Sounds familiar, Ben said with a small smile. Where I come from, I work with a group called the Plumbers. Same basic idea, protecting people from threats they can't handle themselves. They reached a small clearing where a broomstick leaned against a tree. To Ben's amazement, Asta picked it up and held it out. Hope you don't mind flying. This will get us to the hideout faster. Ben stared. You're telling me that's actually a flying broomstick? Asta laughed. Of course. How else would we travel long distances? Right. Flying broomsticks. Why not? Ben sighed, then brightened. Actually, I might have a better idea. He activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through the available aliens. Let's see if I can find, yes. Perfect. With a flash of green light, Ben transformed into a red, manta ray-like alien with yellow horns and wings. Jetray, he announced, stretching his wings. Hop on, Asta. I can get us there a lot faster than your broomstick. Asta's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. That is the coolest transformation magic I've ever seen. You don't even need a grimoire. Ben wasn't sure what a grimoire was, but he shook his head. Nope. Just the Omnitrix. Now, where are we headed? The Black Bull's hideout, Asta said, cautiously climbing onto Ben's back. It's about 40 miles northeast of here. Hold on tight. Ben warned, then launched into the air with his passenger. Asta's shouts of excitement as they soared above the countryside were infectious. Ben found himself grinning as he twisted and looped through the air, Asta whooping with each maneuver. From this height, Ben could see just how different this world was. Sprawling forests gave way to villages and towns, with what looked like a massive city in the far distance, dominated by an enormous castle. The landscape was dotted with strange magical phenomena, floating rocks, areas where the vegetation changed color dramatically, even what appeared to be localized weather systems. That's the royal capital over there. Asta shouted over the wind, pointing to the distant city. And those mountains to the west are the edge of the strong magic region, where the Diamond Kingdom keeps trying to invade. Diamond Kingdom? Ben asked. There are 3 neighboring kingdoms, Asta explained. Diamond, Heart, and Spade. We're in the Clover Kingdom. They all have their own magic knight systems. After about 20 minutes of flight, Asta pointed down to what looked like a bizarre, ramshackle building that seemed cobbled together from multiple architectural styles. That's it. The Black Bull's hideout. Ben descended toward the chaotic structure, noticing how it seemed to shift and change even as they approached. Landing smoothly on the grass outside, he let Asta dismount before transforming back to human form. That was amazing. Asta exclaimed, practically vibrating with excitement. You were so fast. And you can just change forms whenever you want. There's a time limit, Ben explained, showing Asta the Omnitrix. And it needs to recharge between uses. But yeah, I've got a bunch of different aliens I can turn into. Asta's face scrunched in confusion. Aliens? Before Ben could explain, the front door of the hideout burst open. A young woman with silver hair tied in pigtails stormed out, looking furious. Asta! Where have you been? Captain Yami's been looking everywhere for you. Asta rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry, Noel. I got distracted dealing with a devil attack. But look, I brought a visitor. The girl, Noel, finally seemed to notice Ben. Her expression shifted instantly from anger to something more guarded and formal. And who might this be? She asked, her tone noticeably different. This is Ben. He has the coolest transformation magic ever. Asta announced. Ben, this is Noel Silva, royalty and fellow Black Bull. Ben extended his hand. Nice to meet you. Noel hesitated before giving his hand the briefest shake possible. I don't recall any noble families with transformation magic of note. What family are you from? He's not from around here, Asta interjected before Ben could answer. Like, really not from around here. We should take him to Captain Yami. Noel looked skeptical but nodded stiffly. Fine. But don't blame me when the captain gets angry about bringing strangers to the hideout. As they approached the building, Ben could hear shouting, crashes, and what sounded like small explosions from inside. Is the hideout being attacked? Ben asked, readying the Omnitrix. Asta and Noel exchanged glances before laughing. No, that's just Tuesday at the Black Bulls, Asta explained. The inside of the hideout was even more chaotic than the outside. Furniture floated near the ceiling. A blue-haired boy ran screaming from what appeared to be living flames shaped like tiny lions. In one corner, a massive man with a gentle face was carefully watering a potted plant while completely ignoring the mayhem around him. We're back. Asta announced to the room at large. A few heads turned their way, then did double takes when they noticed Ben. Asta brought a friend, shouted a young man with spiky red and white hair. Fresh meat for fighting. Magna, no. Asta protested. He's not here to fight. Then why is he here? Rumbled a deep voice from the shadows. The room instantly fell silent as a tall, muscular man stepped forward. His mere presence seemed to command attention. He wore the same Black Bull's robe as the others, but something about him screamed leader to Ben. The cigarette dangling from his lips and the katana at his side only added to the intimidating image. Captain Yami. Asta straightened instantly. I found Ben helping a village fight off a devil. He has amazing transformation magic unlike anything I've seen. The captain, Yami, studied Ben with narrowed eyes. Is that right? And what's a kid with amazing magic doing wandering around without a squad robe? Ben met the man's gaze steadily. I'm not exactly from around here. Actually, I'm trying to figure out how to get back home. Home being? Yami prompted. Another dimension, apparently, Noel cut in. At least, that's what Asta was babbling about on the way in. Yami's eyebrows rose slightly. Another dimension? That's a new one. Before Ben could explain further, a young man with glasses and a worried expression burst into the room. Captain. We've got an emergency message from headquarters. Strange magical phenomena reported across the region, portals opening, unfamiliar energy signatures. His eyes landed on Ben. Who's this? Perfect timing, Finral, Yami said with a predatory grin. Sounds like your arrival might have caused some ripples, kid. He pointed at Ben. Show me this transformation magic Asta won't shut up about. Ben hesitated, looking around at the now silent room full of curious faces. I need some space. Give the man some space. Yami barked, and the Black Bulls immediately scattered to the edges of the room. With a deep breath, Ben activated the Omnitrix. The familiar green glow illuminated his face as he scrolled through his options. Might as well make an impression, he muttered, then slammed his palm down. The transformation was instantaneous. Where Ben had stood was now a being made of living green crystal, with a body that caught and reflected light from every facet. Diamond Head. Ben announced, his voice deeper and resonant. The reaction was immediate. Several Black Bulls gasped. Noel's eyes widened in shock. The man called Finral dropped the papers he was holding. Yami just took a long drag of his cigarette. Crystal magic, huh? Not bad. Not exactly, Ben said, raising his arm and demonstrating by morphing his hand into a crystal blade, then back to a hand. I'm a Petrosapian, well, DNA from one. I can control and generate crystal. A young man with spiky blonde hair and a manic grin appeared suddenly in front of Ben, electricity crackling around him. Fight me. I want to see how your crystals hold up against my lightning. Luck. Back off. Asta shouted, trying to pull the lightning user away from Ben. Yami's laugh cut through the commotion. So you're telling me that device on your wrist lets you transform into different magical beings? Ben nodded, the crystalline structure of his head catching the light. We don't call it magic where I'm from. But essentially, yes. And you got here how? Fighting an alien that could manipulate dimensions. My Omnitrix, this device, interacted with his powers somehow and sent me here. Yami stared at him for a long moment, then burst into laughter. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, and I live with these lunatics. He gestured around at the black bulls. I like you, kid. With another flash of green light, Ben returned to human form. The transformation had drawn an even bigger crowd, with more Black Bulls members appearing to see what the commotion was about. So cool, exclaimed a small girl with curly hair who hadn't been there before. His mana disappeared completely when he changed back, observed a tall man with mirror-like eyes. Fascinating. Yami clapped his hands once, silencing the room. Alright, here's what's happening. This kid claims to be from another dimension. His magic or whatever it is might be connected to the weird phenomena Finral just mentioned. So we're going to check it out. He pointed at Ben, Asta, and Noel. You three, head to the location Finral's going to take you to. Investigate these portals, see if there's a connection to our guest here, and report back. Me? Noel protested. Why do I have to go babysit Asta and the Dimension Traveler? Because I said so, royalty, Yami replied with a dangerous smile. Unless you've got a problem with my orders. Noel paled slightly. And no, Captain. Good. Finral, coordinates. The spatial magic user nodded nervously. Reports indicate the strongest anomalies are occurring near the border of the Forsaken Realm, about 40 miles south of here. That's close to where I found Ben. Asta realized. Not a coincidence, I'm guessing, Ben said. If I came through there, maybe that's where I can find a way back. Yami nodded. Get moving. And kid, he fixed Ben with an intense stare. If you're lying about any of this, I'll know. And you won't like what happens next. Despite the threat, Ben found himself smiling. I get it. Thanks for the help. Finral opened a glowing portal in the middle of the room. This will take you to a village near the anomalies. I can't get you closer because the spatial distortions are interfering with my magic. Asta grabbed Ben's arm excitedly. Come on. This is going to be awesome. As they approached the portal, Noel sighed dramatically. If we die because of your interdimensional friend, I'm going to be very upset. Ben laughed. Trust me, this is pretty normal for my life. The three of them stepped through the portal together. On the other side, they emerged in a quiet village square. Unlike the previous settlement, this one seemed untouched by any attacks. Villagers went about their business, though many stopped to stare at the newcomers, particularly at Asta and Noel's Black Bull's robes. Magic Knights, one man called out, approaching them with a bow. Have you come about the strange lights in the forest? Asta nodded enthusiastically. That's right. We're here to investigate. The man looked relieved. Thank goodness. They started appearing yesterday, glowing tears in the air that show glimpses of places none of us recognize. That sounds like what brought me here, Ben said. Can you show us where you've seen them? The villager led them to the edge of the settlement, pointing toward a dense forest beyond. They appear and disappear throughout those woods. Some of our hunters have reported strange creatures coming through, though they vanish quickly. Have any people gone missing? Ben asked, suddenly concerned. Or been pulled into the portals? The man shook his head. Not that we know of. We've been warning everyone to stay away from the forest. Noelle stepped forward, her posture regal despite her youth. You were right to call for magic knights. We'll handle this situation. As they headed into the forest, Ben couldn't help but notice how Noelle's demeanor had shifted from reluctant to authoritative the moment they were in public. You really take this magic knight stuff seriously, huh? He observed. Noelle tossed her silver pigtails. Of course. It's our duty to protect the kingdom. Just because I got stuck with the worst squad doesn't mean I don't take my responsibilities seriously. Worst squad? Ben questioned. Asta jumped in. The Black Bulls have a reputation for being destructive troublemakers. But we're actually super strong and awesome. We're improving our reputation, Noelle clarified. Slowly. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Ben noticed the air beginning to feel strange, the same tingling sensation he'd experienced when he first arrived. We're getting close, he said. I can feel it. Asta looked at him curiously. You can sense mana? I thought you said you don't have magic in your world. I don't think it's mana I'm sensing. It's more like, the fabric of reality getting thin. They pushed through a dense thicket and found themselves in a clearing where the air itself seemed to shimmer. Floating throughout the space were exactly what the villager had described, tears in reality that showed glimpses of other places. Some showed alien landscapes, others cityscapes that looked more like Ben's world. Whoa, Asta breathed. Ben approached one of the rifts cautiously. Through it, he could see what looked like a desert planet with 3 moons. Another nearby showed an ocean of what appeared to be liquid metal. These are dimensional rifts, Ben explained. Windows between different realities. Noelle reached toward one but stopped short of touching it. Is your world visible in any of these? Ben scanned the clearing. Not that I can see. But they seem to be shifting. The Omnitrix suddenly began to beep rapidly, its surface glowing yellow again. Unknown dimensional energy detected, it announced in Asmatha's voice, startling both Asta and Noelle. It talks. Asta exclaimed. Sometimes, Ben replied, examining the device. Usually when something's wrong. Before he could explain further, the largest rift in the clearing began to expand, its edges crackling with energy. The air pressure dropped dramatically, and wind began to swirl toward the opening portal. That can't be good, Ben muttered. From within the expanding rift, a figure emerged, humanoid but clearly not human. Its skin was pale blue, and it wore ornate armor that seemed to shift colors as it moved. Most disturbingly, where its face should have been was a swirling vortex of energy. I found you, the being said, its voice echoing strangely. The one who carries the Omnitrix. Ben stepped forward, positioning himself between the newcomer and his companions. Who are you? I am Vortex, the being announced. Master of dimensions, seeker of power. And you, Ben Tennyson, have something I want. Ben's eyes narrowed. How do you know my name? Vortex made a gesture that might have been a shrug. I have searched many realities for the Omnitrix. In some, you are a hero. In others, a villain. In this one, you are an anomaly. Okay, creepy dimension guy, Asta interrupted, stepping up beside Ben with his sword drawn. I don't know what an Omnitrix is, but if you're after Ben, you deal with the Black Bulls too. Vortex turned his vortex face toward Asta. A world of magic. How quaint. Your primitive energies are no match for dimensional mastery. Noelle joined them, water swirling around her hand. I am royalty of the Silva family. You will not speak to magic knights with such disrespect. Ben activated the Omnitrix again. Look, Vortex, I just want to get home. If you can help with that, great. If not, step aside. The Omnitrix is wasted on you, Vortex replied. With it, I could access the DNA of every being in every dimension. Ultimate power across all realities. Yeah, that's exactly why you're not getting it, Ben said, selecting an alien and transforming in a flash of green light. In Ben's place stood a blue, moth-like alien with 4 wings and large green eyes. Big Chill. Vortex raised his hands, and the rifts throughout the clearing began to pulse with energy. Impressive. Let us see how your transformations fare against the void between worlds. From the rifts emerged shadowy creatures that resembled the monster from the village, different shapes and sizes, but all with the same dark aura surrounding them. Those are devils. Asta shouted, readying his sword. But how is he controlling them? Fascinating, Vortex observed. This world's dimensional boundaries connect to a realm of negative energy beings. Useful pawns. The shadow creatures charged forward. Big Chill turned intangible, allowing them to pass harmlessly through him. Asta engaged directly, his anti-magic sword cutting through their dark auras. Noelle, after a moment of concentration, created a sphere of water around herself that shot out spikes at any creature that approached. Your friends are skilled, Vortex noted to Ben. But ultimately irrelevant. He raised his hand toward Ben, and a beam of swirling energy shot forth. Ben went intangible again, but to his shock, the beam still hit him, sending painful vibrations through his molecular structure. Dimensional energy transcends physical states, Vortex explained. You cannot simply phase through it. Ben recovered and exhaled a blast of freezing air that crystallized around Vortex, temporarily immobilizing him. Guys! Ben called to Asta and Noelle, who were still fighting the shadow creatures. Focus on Vortex. He's controlling them. Asta nodded, cutting down one last devil before charging toward the frozen Vortex. Just before his sword connected, the ice shattered, and Vortex disappeared through another small rift, reappearing behind Noelle. Your magic is fascinating, child, he said, grabbing her arm. Such potential. Let go of me. Noelle shouted, water exploding outward from her in all directions. The blast knocked Vortex back, but he seemed more amused than hurt. Yes, this world's magic could be quite useful to study. Ben flew at Vortex, turning tangible just before impact to deliver a solid punch that sent the dimensional being stumbling backward toward one of the larger rifts. Asta followed up with a swing of his sword that caught Vortex across the chest, causing the armor to crack and dimensional energy to leak out. Impossible. Vortex gasped. That weapon, it negates dimensional energy. Anti-magic, Asta corrected with a grin. Cuts through any magic, apparently including whatever you're using. Vortex clutched his damaged armor. A temporary setback. I will return when I understand this world's powers better. Before they could stop him, he backed into the largest rift, which closed immediately after him. With his departure, the shadow creatures dissolved, and the smaller rifts began to shrink. He's getting away. Asta shouted, running toward where the rift had been. Let him go, Ben said, reverting to human form. We need to figure out what's going on before we chase him through dimensions. Noelle approached, looking slightly shaken but composed. That being, he wasn't a devil, was he? Ben shook his head. No. Where I come from, we'd call him an alien, a being from another world. But he seems able to travel between dimensions, not just planets. And he wants your watch thing? Asta asked. The Omnitrix, Ben confirmed, looking down at the device. It contains DNA samples of aliens from all across my universe. In the wrong hands, it could be a devastating weapon. Noelle crossed her arms. Well, he also seemed interested in our magic. Could he actually take it somehow? I don't know, Ben admitted. But I don't want to find out. As they discussed their next move, Ben noticed the remaining rifts were shrinking more rapidly. The portals are closing. Vortex must have been keeping them open somehow. Then how will you get home? Asta asked, concern evident in his voice. Ben sighed. I don't know. But I think finding Vortex again might be my best shot. Noel looked thoughtful. We should report this to Captain Yami and headquarters. If this Vortex person is interested in magic, he might target other magic knights or even the royal families. Good call, Asta agreed. Plus, maybe the Wizard King would know something about dimensional magic that could help Ben. With the immediate threat gone and the rifts nearly closed, they headed back toward the village. As they walked, Ben found himself wondering just how long he might be stuck in this strange world of magic. So, he said to break the silence, while I'm here, what exactly do magic knights do day to day? Asta's face lit up. All kinds of awesome stuff. Fighting bad guys, protecting villages, going on dangerous missions. Getting this one out of trouble, Noel added, gesturing at Asta. Sounds like my kind of place, Ben said with a small smile. At least until I figure out a way home. Back at the Black Bull's hideout, Yami listened to their report with unusual attention, only interrupting occasionally to ask clarifying questions. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair, blowing a plume of smoke toward the ceiling. So we've got a dimension-hopping weirdo after your watch, and he can control devils, Yami summarized. Just another Tuesday. What should we do, Captain? Asta asked eagerly. Yami scratched his chin. First, we inform Julius. The Wizard King will want to know about new threats, especially ones that can control devils. He turned to Ben. And you, Dimension Boy. Looks like you're stuck here for a bit. Seems that way, Ben agreed. Then you'll need somewhere to stay, Yami concluded. And someone to keep an eye on you. He can stay here. Asta suggested immediately. Right, Captain. Yami studied Ben for a long moment. Got any experience fighting bad guys in your world, kid? Ben couldn't help but smile. You could say that. And that watch of yours, you're not planning to use it for anything stupid like trying to take over the kingdom or assassinate royalty? Definitely not, Ben assured him. Good enough for me, Yami declared, standing up. Temporary Black Bulls member it is. Noel looked scandalized. Captain. You can't just make someone a magic knight without proper authorization from, sure I can, Yami interrupted. He's not officially a magic knight, just staying with us while we figure out his situation. Besides, with powers like his, he might as well make himself useful. Ben blinked in surprise. Just like that? I'm part of your squad. Yami grinned. The Black Bulls take all the misfits nobody else wants. A kid from another dimension with a magical watch? You'll fit right in. Before Ben could respond, the door burst open and Finral rushed in again, looking even more panicked than before. Captain. Message from headquarters. The Wizard King wants to meet our interdimensional visitor immediately. Yami laughed. News travels fast. Julius must be dying of curiosity. The Wizard King wants to meet me? Ben asked, suddenly nervous. Asta clapped him on the back. The Wizard King is amazing. He's the strongest magic user in the kingdom, and he loves unusual magic more than anyone. Great, Ben muttered. No pressure. Get cleaned up, Yami ordered. Finral will take us to the capital in an hour. And kid, he fixed Ben with that intense stare again. Try to make a good impression. Julius might be easygoing, but the other captains won't be so welcoming of a stranger with unknown powers. As Ben followed Asta to find some clean clothes, he couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into. Dimensional travel, magic, devils, and now a meeting with the ruler of an entire kingdom. Just another day in the life of Ben Tennyson, he sighed to himself. But despite the situation, he found himself almost looking forward to the adventure ahead. After all, how many people got to experience an entirely new world of magic? And somewhere out there, Vortex was planning his next move, which meant Ben needed to be ready. Traveling to the royal capital via Finral's spatial magic was instantaneous but disorienting. One moment, Ben was standing in the Black Bull's hideout, the next, he found himself in a grand courtyard surrounded by towering spires and elegant architecture. "Welcome to the capital," Yami said, casually lighting a fresh cigarette as Finral closed the portal behind them. Ben stared up at the magnificent buildings, particularly the central castle that dominated the skyline. "This place makes the White House look like a shed." "The what house?" Asta asked. "Never mind," Ben replied. "So this is where the Wizard King lives?" Yami nodded, already walking toward the largest building. "Magic Knight headquarters. Try not to touch anything expensive." As they approached the entrance, Ben noticed guards in elaborate uniforms tensing at the sight of Yami, though none dared to challenge him. Inside, the hallways were decorated with ornate tapestries depicting magical battles and historical events Ben didn't recognize. "This place is incredible," he murmured. "Royal capital architecture," Noelle said with an air of familiarity. "Though I suppose growing up in the Silva estate, I'm used to such grandeur." Ben shot her a sidelong glance. "You grew up in a place like this?" "She's royalty," Asta explained. "One of the 3 royal families that protect the kingdom." Noelle's expression tightened slightly. "Though my family wasn't particularly pleased when I joined the Black Bulls." Before Ben could inquire further, they arrived at a massive door guarded by knights in golden armor. Upon seeing Yami, they immediately stepped aside and opened the doors. "Captain Yami Sukahiro of the Black Bulls," one announced, "here to see the Wizard King as requested." The chamber beyond was circular and bright, with enormous windows offering a panoramic view of the capital. Standing by one of these windows was a man with blonde hair and a youthful appearance despite the wisdom evident in his eyes. He wore an elaborate white cloak adorned with stars and medals. "Ah, Yami," the man greeted cheerfully, turning toward them. "And you must be our interdimensional visitor." Ben was surprised by the Wizard King's casual demeanor. He'd expected someone more imposing, given the title and the grandeur of the surroundings. "Julius Navachrono," Yami introduced, "Wizard King of the Clover Kingdom." "Julius, this is Ben Tennyson, who claims to be from another dimension." Julius approached with an eager smile that reminded Ben more of an excited scientist than a powerful ruler. "Extraordinary. I've theorized about other dimensions, of course, but to actually meet someone from one. You must tell me everything about your world." "It's an honor to meet you, sir," Ben said, extending his hand. Julius shook it enthusiastically. "The honor is mine. And please, call me Julius. Now, I understand you possess some form of transformation magic unlike anything in our kingdom?" Ben glanced at Yami, who nodded. "It's not exactly magic, but..." He activated the Omnitrix and scrolled through his options. "Maybe it's easier just to show you." With a flash of green light, Ben transformed into a small, gray-skinned alien with a disproportionately large head and eyes. "Gray matter," he announced in a high-pitched voice. Julius's eyes widened with delight. "Fascinating. Your magical signature completely changed." He crouched down to examine the tiny alien more closely. "And your physical form as well. Not an illusion, but true transformation." "It's not an illusion," Gray Matter confirmed in his nasally voice. "The Omnitrix contains DNA samples from different alien species. It literally transforms me into those aliens." "DNA?" Julius questioned. Gray Matter blinked. "Right, different world. DNA is the, let's call it the blueprint that determines what living things look like and how they function. The Omnitrix lets me transform into different species by rewriting my DNA temporarily." Julius looked like a child who had just received the best gift ever. "And how many of these transformations do you have?" "At last count, over 70, Gray Matter said. Though I don't have access to all of them at once." With another flash, Ben returned to human form. "The Omnitrix has its limitations. Time limits, recharge periods, occasional glitches. Still, what an incredible tool," Julius marveled. And you say this comes from science, not magic? Ben nodded. Where I come from, we don't have magic like you do here. We have technology instead. Julius turned to Yami. And you found him near spatial disturbances in the Forsaken Realm? My squad did, Yami confirmed. There's more. Tell him about the dimension guy, kid. Ben explained his encounter with Vortex and how the dimensional being seemed interested in both the Omnitrix and this world's magic. Julius's expression grew serious for the first time. A being capable of traversing dimensions and controlling devils, this is concerning. If he could harness both your technology and our magic, there's no telling what damage he might cause. Which is why I've temporarily added the kid to my squad, Yami said. Figure he might as well help us find this Vortex character while he's stuck here. Julius nodded approvingly. A wise decision. Though not, I assume, officially sanctioned. Yami shrugged. When have I ever waited for official sanction? To Ben's surprise, Julius laughed. Indeed. Well, I see no issue with Ben assisting the Black Bulls while we investigate these dimensional disturbances. He turned to Ben. I'll have our researchers look into methods of interdimensional travel. Perhaps we can find a way to return you home. Thank you, Ben said sincerely. In the meantime, Julius continued, I'm intensely curious about your world and these transformations of yours. Would you mind demonstrating a few more? For scientific purposes, of course. Ben couldn't help but smile at the Wizard King's childlike enthusiasm. I don't mind, but the Omnitrix needs time to recharge after use. Of course, Julius said, though he looked disappointed. Another time, then. For now, I suggest you work with the Black Bulls to track down this Vortex character. He represents a threat to both our world and potentially yours. As they were about to leave, the doors opened again, and a tall, serious-looking man with glasses entered. Lord Julius, the Magic Knight captains have arrived for the scheduled meeting. He stopped short upon seeing the Black Bulls and Ben. Ah, Marks, Julius greeted. Perfect timing. Could you inform the other captains that will be joined briefly by Captain Yami and a special guest? I believe they'll find this quite interesting. Marks looked skeptical but bowed. As you wish, Lord Julius. Ben turned to Yami with concern. All the Magic Knight captains. Yami grinned around his cigarette. Hope you're ready for some attention, Dimension Boy. The captains aren't nearly as easygoing as Julius. Great, Ben muttered. Just what I needed. Asta patted his shoulder encouragingly. Don't worry. Just show them one of your cool transformations, and they'll be impressed. Or they'll try to arrest me as a threat to the kingdom, Ben replied. Noel actually smiled slightly at that. Only if you're lucky. If they think you're really dangerous, they won't bother with arrest. Not helping, Ben told her. As they followed Julius and Marks toward the meeting hall, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that his stay in this magical world was going to be far more complicated than he'd anticipated. And somewhere out there, Vortex was planning his next move, while in Bellwood, his friends and family would be wondering what had happened to him. One crisis at a time, Ben reminded himself. First, convince the Magic Knight captains he wasn't a threat. Then find Vortex. Then figure out how to get home. Just another day in the life of a hero, even in another dimension. Chapter 2, Magic and Mutations. Ben woke up to the sound of something exploding. He bolted upright in the unfamiliar bed, reaching instinctively for the Omnitrix before remembering where he was. The Black Bull's hideout. Another dimension. Right. Another explosion rattled the windows, followed by maniacal laughter. Is the building under attack? Ben muttered, pulling on the clothes Asta had lent him, a simple white shirt and black pants that were slightly too short. He opened his door to find Magna sprinting down the hallway, hair literally on fire. Morning, new guy. Magna called cheerfully as he ran past. Better duck. Duck. Why would I? A bolt of lightning shot over Ben's head, scorching the wall behind him. Sorry! Shouted the blonde-haired lightning user. Luck, Ben remembered, as he zipped past in pursuit. I almost had him that time. Ben stared after them. They're just fighting. For fun. At 7 in the morning. You get used to it, said a voice behind him. Ben turned to find Asta, already dressed and sweaty from what appeared to be morning training. The Black Bulls never sleep. Asta declared proudly. Captain Yami says a real magic knight is ready for battle 24/7. Coffee, Ben said. I need coffee before anything else makes sense. Asta led him to the hideout's dining hall, where several Black Bulls members were already eating breakfast. The chaotic energy of the place hadn't diminished since yesterday. Charmy, the small, perpetually hungry mage, spotted Ben and immediately summoned a flock of sheep-shaped cooking spirits. New friend needs breakfast, she declared. Make him something special, my little sheep. Before Ben could protest, a plate piled high with food appeared before him, sausages, eggs, pastries, and something purple he couldn't identify. Thanks, he said, cautiously taking a bite. His eyes widened. This is amazing. Charmy's food magic is the best in the kingdom, Asta said, already devouring his own mountain of food. As Ben ate, he observed the other Black Bulls members. Despite their chaotic personalities, there was a clear sense of family among them. They squabbled, fought, and insulted each other constantly, but beneath it all was genuine affection. It reminded him a bit of his team back home. The thought of home brought a pang of homesickness. Gwen and Kevin would be worried sick by now, probably searching every dimension they could access. You okay? Asta asked, noticing Ben's expression. Just thinking about my friends back home, Ben admitted. They're probably looking for me. Asta nodded seriously. We'll find a way to get you back. But until then, you're one of us. One of us. Charmy echoed, mouth full of food. The dining hall door burst open, and Yami entered, imposing as ever. Listen up, idiots, he announced. Since Dimension Boy here is gonna be with us for a while, he needs to learn how this world works. I'm assigning each of you to teach him something useful. The Black Bulls looked at each other, then at Ben. Teach him? Magna asked. Like what? Whatever you're not completely useless at, Yami replied. Magna, show him combat magic basics. Finral, explain mana sensing. Luck, battle tactics. Vanessa, royal politics. He turned to Ben. By the end of the week, I want you functioning like you belong here. Yes, sir, Ben said, surprised by the structured approach. And kid, Yami added, I want to see more of those transformations in action. Training ground in 1 hour. After breakfast, Ben followed Magna to an open area behind the hideout. The ground was scorched in dozens of places, evidence of previous training sessions. All right, new guy, Magna said, twirling a baseball-sized fireball on his finger. First lesson about magic in this world, everyone's got an affinity. Fire, water, lightning, whatever. You figure out yours yet? I don't actually have magic, Ben tried to explain. The Omnitrix gives me powers, but they're not, yeah, alien DNA, different dimension, blah blah, Magna interrupted. But you're here now, which means you gotta understand how we do things. So we'll start with the basics, mana. For the next hour, Magna explained the concept of mana, the magical energy that flowed through everything in this world. While Ben didn't have magic himself, understanding how it worked would help him navigate this new reality. So, Magna said finally, let's see one of your transformations in action. Captain wants a demonstration, and I want to see what you can do. Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through his options. How about something to match your fire? He slammed down on the dial, and green light enveloped him. In his place stood a humanoid creature made of magma and rock, flames flickering around his head. Heat blast. Ben announced. Magna's jaw dropped. Holy crap. That's not just fire magic, you literally became fire. By now, other black bulls had gathered to watch. Luck's eyes gleamed with excitement, while Vanessa observed with lazy interest from a conjured cloud chair, drink in hand. Fascinating, said Finral, adjusting his glasses. His mana signature completely changed with his form. Ben created a fireball in his palm. Wanna see what Heat Blast can do? Magna grinned, summoning his own fireball. Bring it, Dimension Boy. What followed was half training session, half friendly competition as Magna and Ben launched increasingly elaborate fire attacks at training dummies. Ben discovered that in this magic-saturated world, Heat Blast's flames seemed more powerful and responsive than usual. You're controlling it too precisely for a beginner, Magna noted. Most people spend years learning control like that. The transformation comes with instinctive knowledge, Ben explained. Each alien has its own skills and abilities that I can access immediately. Yami arrived to observe, nodding approvingly. Not bad. Switching forms gives you versatility most mages don't have. Let's see something different. Ben obliged, transforming into 4 arms, his 4-armed, red-skinned powerhouse form. Magna immediately challenged him to a strength contest, which Ben won easily by picking up a boulder that took 3 other black bulls to budge. This is incredible. Asta exclaimed. It's like having a different magic for every situation. Over the next few days, Ben fell into a routine with the black bulls. Each member taught him something different about their world. Finral explained the hierarchy of the Magic Knights, from the colorful squads like Golden Dawn and Crimson Lion to the ranking system of stars awarded for merit. Vanessa, between drinks, gave him a crash course in royal politics, explaining the 3 royal families, Silva, Vermilion, and Kira, who wielded both political power and exceptional magic. Luck, naturally, focused on combat tactics, challenging Ben to spar with each of his transformations to test their strengths and weaknesses. Even Grey, the shy shapeshifter, helped in her own way, showing Ben how transformation magic typically worked in this world, quite differently from the Omnitrix's alien forms. Throughout it all, Ben noticed something strange happening with the Omnitrix. It seemed to be adapting to this world. Sometimes transformations lasted longer than the usual time limit. Other times, the dial would glow with unusual patterns after he'd been near particularly powerful magic. One morning, 5 days after his arrival, Ben woke to find the Omnitrix scanning his room of its own accord, the green beam passing over everything from the walls to his borrowed clothes. What are you doing? Ben asked the device. Analyzing ambient magical energy patterns, the Omnitrix responded in Asmatha's voice. Adapting transformation matrices to local dimensional parameters. Is that safe? Ben asked, concerned. Unknown, the device replied. Insufficient data. Continuing analysis. Ben reported this to Yami, who simply shrugged and said, magic does weird shit. As long as you don't turn into some world-ending monster, we'll deal with it. Not exactly reassuring. That afternoon, while Ben was training with Noel, who had reluctantly agreed to show him water magic principles, Finral burst onto the training ground, looking excited. Captain wants everyone in the common room, he announced. We've got a mission. Ben and Noel found the other black bulls already gathered. Yami stood before them, smoking as usual, with a map spread on the table. Listen up, Yami said once everyone arrived. Magic Knights HQ just reported unusual magical readings from an ancient dungeon that appeared on the border of the Forsaken Realm. We're being sent to investigate before the Diamond Kingdom gets their hands on whatever's inside. A dungeon? Asta's eyes lit up. Like with treasure and traps and stuff? Exactly like that, Yami confirmed. This particular dungeon hasn't been seen in over a century. Last time it appeared, the mage who explored it came back with artifacts that could amplify magic power tenfold. Everyone perked up at that. We're not all going, Yami continued, crushing several hopes. I need a small team that can get in and out quickly. Asta, your anti-magic will be useful against traps. Noel, you're getting better at control, and we might need water magic. Luck, because you can sense mana concentrations. He turned to Ben. And you, Dimension Boy. Those transformations of yours might come in handy, especially if your watch keeps acting weird around magic. So it's the four of us. Ben confirmed. Plus Finral to get you there, Yami added. He'll drop you off but can't go in, spatial magic gets messy inside ancient dungeons. You'll have to find your own way out. What about the Diamond Kingdom? Noel asked. Will they send mages too? Yami's expression darkened. Count on it. If you encounter them, use your judgment. The mission is to secure magical artifacts, not start a war, but defend yourselves if necessary. 2 hours later, Ben found himself stepping through one of Finral's portals onto a barren plain dominated by what looked like an ancient temple half buried in the earth. Stone stairs led down into darkness, with unfamiliar runes carved around the entrance. This is as close as I can get you, Finral said, the portal shimmering behind him. The dungeon's magical field starts interfering with spatial magic about 50 feet in. I'll wait here for 12 hours. If you're not back by then. We'll be back, Asta assured him confidently. Luck was practically vibrating with excitement. I hope we find strong enemies inside. Maybe traps that shoot lightning. Try not to sound so eager to die, Noel sighed, adjusting her black bull's robe. Ben checked the Omnitrix, fully charged and ready. Let's do this. As they descended the stone stairs into the dungeon, the ambient light faded, replaced by an eerie blue glow emanating from crystals embedded in the walls. The air felt heavy with magic. Ben could sense it now, after days of training with the bulls. This place is ancient, Noel observed, running her fingers over inscriptions on the wall. These symbols predate the Clover Kingdom. Look out! Luck suddenly shouted, pulling Asta back just as the stair beneath his foot sank with a click. Darts shot from the walls, slicing through the air where Asta had been standing. Traps already? Ben said. We just got here. Asta drew his sword. Stay behind me. My sword can cut through magical traps. Not everything is magical, Ben pointed out. Some might be regular mechanical traps. Like what? Asta asked. As if on cue, the staircase suddenly collapsed beneath them, sending all four tumbling down into darkness. Ben acted instantly, activating the Omnitrix mid-fall. Spider Monkey. His transformation complete, Ben shot webs from his tail, catching Noel and Asta while Luck used his lightning magic to propel himself safely to a ledge. Ben swung them all to safety as the stairs crashed into the chamber below. Quick thinking, Noel admitted as Ben set her down. No problem, Spider Monkey replied in his chattering voice. Though I think we just found the express route down. The chamber they'd landed in was vast, with multiple corridors branching outward. Ancient statues of warriors lined the walls, and more of the glowing crystals provided dim illumination. In the center stood a pedestal with what appeared to be a map etched in stone. Luck immediately went to examine it. It's a map of the dungeon. Look, we're here. He pointed to a section that glowed faintly. And this must be where the treasure is. His finger traced to a large chamber at the lowest level. Great, Ben said, reverting to human form. Which way? As Luck studied the map, Ben noticed the Omnitrix behaving strangely again, the dial pulsing with an unusual pattern. Guys, my watch is reacting to something in here. Asta looked concerned. Is that good or bad? Unknown magical artifact detected, the Omnitrix suddenly announced. Scanning. I'm going with bad, Noel decided. Let's grab whatever artifacts we find and get out before something worse happens. Following the map's guidance, they chose a corridor leading deeper into the dungeon. As they walked, Ben couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. "Anyone else feel like those statues are following us with their eyes?" he asked. "Don't be ridiculous," Noelle scoffed, though she glanced nervously at the stone warriors they passed. The corridor eventually opened into a chamber filled with what appeared to be magical devices, ancient contraptions of metal and crystal pulsing with energy. "Wow," Asta breathed. "What is all this stuff?" Luck approached one of the devices, a sphere hovering above a pedestal. "This magic feels strange. Not like any attribute I've encountered." As they explored the chamber, the Omnitrix's pulsing increased in frequency. "Whatever it's detecting, we're getting closer," Ben said. Noelle discovered a doorway hidden behind a tapestry. "There's another chamber through here." The hidden room was smaller but clearly more important. A single pedestal stood in the center, holding what looked like a gauntlet made of an iridescent metal that shifted colors as they watched. "That's gotta be one of the artifacts we're looking for," Asta said. Ben approached carefully. The Omnitrix was now pulsing rapidly, almost urgently. "It's definitely reacting to this," he confirmed. Luck examined the pedestal. "No obvious traps, but that doesn't mean much in a place like this." Noelle created a small sphere of water. "I can try to slide it off the pedestal without touching it directly." "Good idea," Ben agreed. As Noelle manipulated her water to surround the gauntlet, the dungeon suddenly trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling, and the glowing crystals flickered. "What was that?" Asta asked, gripping his sword. "Someone else is in the dungeon," Luck said, his usual smile replaced with a serious expression. "Multiple mages, using powerful magic. Diamond Kingdom, most likely." "How far?" Ben asked. "Not far enough," Luck replied. "They're heading this way." Noelle successfully lifted the gauntlet with her water magic, bringing it to her hand. "Got it. Now let's." The moment her fingers touched the artifact, it flared with blinding light. The Omnitrix responded with a matching pulse, and suddenly both the gauntlet and the watch were linked by a strand of energy. "What's happening?" Asta shouted over the rising hum of power. "I don't know." Ben tried to back away, but the energy tether between the Omnitrix and the gauntlet pulled taut. "It's like they're communicating." "Drop the gauntlet," Luck advised. Noelle tried, but the artifact now seemed attached to her hand. "I can't." The energy built to a crescendo, and then, with a final pulse, both the Omnitrix and the gauntlet went dark. The gauntlet fell from Noelle's hand, clattering to the floor. Ben checked the Omnitrix. The dial glowed with a pattern he'd never seen before. "New DNA sequence acquired," it announced. "Hybridization protocol initiated." "That's new," Ben said, concerned. Before they could investigate further, the entire dungeon shook again, this time more violently. "We need to move," Luck said urgently. "They're getting closer, and they're destroying parts of the dungeon to get here faster." Asta scooped up the gauntlet, which now appeared dormant. "Let's go." "Which way out?" Luck pointed to another doorway. "According to the map, there should be a path that leads back up through that corridor." They hurried through the door, only to find themselves in a vast chamber filled with what looked like hundreds of the stone warrior statues they'd seen earlier. "I don't like this," Ben muttered. As if responding to his words, the nearest statue's eyes began to glow with an eerie red light. "Intruders detected," it intoned in a hollow voice. "Artifact theft confirmed. Elimination protocols engaged." One by one, the other statues activated, eyes glowing, stone limbs grinding as they moved. "So much for the easy way out," Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. The dial felt different, hotter, almost vibrating under his touch. When he slammed it down, the familiar green light enveloped him, but something was wrong. The transformation felt off, like two puzzle pieces being forced together. When the light faded, Ben stood in a form he didn't recognize. His body resembled Diamond Head, but with elements of heat blast mixed in, crystalline structure glowing with internal fire, heat radiating from cracks in the mineral surface. What the? He began, his voice a strange blend of both aliens. Ben. Asta stared at him. Is that normal? Not even slightly, Ben replied, examining his hands. I think the gauntlet did something to the Omnitrix. It's created some kind of hybrid form. No time to analyze it further, the stone warriors were advancing from all sides. We'll figure it out later, Noelle said, water swirling around her hands. Right now, we fight. The battle that ensued was chaotic. Asta's anti-magic sword cut through the stone warriors, while Luck's lightning shattered others. Noelle's improved water magic kept groups at bay. Ben, meanwhile, was discovering the capabilities of his new hybrid form. He could create crystal structures like Diamond Head, but they were infused with Heat Blast's fire, erupting into flaming shards when they struck enemies. When he fired a beam of energy, it combined the diamond's cutting power with intense heat that melted stone on contact. This is actually pretty cool. Ben called as he took down 3 warriors with a sweep of his arm, sending flaming crystal shards through their bodies. Less talking, more fighting. Noelle shouted back, though Ben could see she was impressed. They fought their way through the chamber, heading for a corridor on the far side that Luck insisted would lead them out. The stone warriors were numerous but predictable in their movements. Just as they reached the corridor, a massive explosion rocked the dungeon. Part of the ceiling collapsed, and through the newly created hole dropped 3 figures wearing unfamiliar uniforms adorned with diamond-shaped emblems. Diamond Kingdom mages. Luck identified, his battle-hungry grin returning. The newcomers surveyed the scene, the Black Bulls, the mysterious transformed Ben, the destroyed stone warriors, and the artifact in Asta's possession. Clover Kingdom dogs, the lead mage spat. Hand over the artifact, and we might let you live. Asta stepped forward, sword ready. Not happening. The diamond mages didn't waste time with further discussion. The leader raised his hand, and spikes of what looked like hardened earth shot toward the group. Noelle raised a water shield, while Ben instinctively created a crystal barrier that erupted with flames when the earth spikes hit it. What manner of magic is that? One of the diamond mages exclaimed, staring at Ben. The kind that's going to kick your butt, Ben replied, finding that this new form allowed him to launch crystal shards that exploded into flames on impact. The diamond mages were powerful, their attacks coordinated and precise. One manipulated metal, sending blades whirling through the air. Another controlled some form of wind magic that sliced like razors. The leader's earth magic was both defensive and offensive, creating barriers and weapons with equal ease. We need to retreat. Noelle called after a particularly powerful blast knocked her back. We have what we came for. Luck nodded reluctantly. The exit is through that passage. About 200 yards, then up. Ben created a massive wall of crystal between them and the diamond mages. This won't hold them long. Go. They raced down the corridor, the sounds of combat fading behind them as the diamond mages dealt with both Ben's crystal wall and the remaining stone warriors. That was close, Asta panted as they ran. Nice work with that new form, Ben. Thanks, though I still don't know exactly what happened, Ben replied, still in his hybrid form. The Omnitrix has never done anything like this before. The corridor began to slope upward, giving them hope they were nearing the exit. But their relief was short-lived. The Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest began to flash red, the warning that his transformation was about to time out. Guys, I'm about to change back, he warned. Now. Noelle looked alarmed. Can you hold it off? Not really how it works, Ben said apologetically. The red flash came just as they reached a junction in the corridor. Human Ben stood where the hybrid form had been, suddenly much more vulnerable. Great timing, he muttered, reaching for the Omnitrix again, only to find it unresponsive. And now it needs to recharge. A rumble from behind indicated the diamond mages had broken through his barrier and were in pursuit. We need to split up, Luck suggested quickly. They'll expect us to stay together. Asta and Noel, you take the artifact and head right toward the exit. Ben and I will go left to draw them off, then double back. But Ben doesn't have his powers right now, Noel pointed out. Which is why I'm going with him, Luck said, electricity crackling around his body. We'll be fine. Meet at the entrance in 20 minutes. Before anyone could argue further, the sound of approaching footsteps forced their decision. Asta and Noel reluctantly took the right path with the artifact, while Ben and Luck went left. Sorry about this, Ben said as they ran. The Omnitrix should recharge in a few minutes. Don't worry about it, Luck replied with his usual cheerful grin. This is fun. I haven't had a good chase in ages. You have a strange definition of fun, Ben muttered. They ran through a series of smaller chambers, eventually ducking into an alcove to catch their breath and see if they were being followed. I think we lost them, Ben whispered, checking the Omnitrix. Still recharging. Not quite, Luck said, his smile fading. One of them is tracking us. The metal magic user. I can sense him. No sooner had he spoken than a barrage of metal shards embedded themselves in the wall beside them. Run! Luck shouted, pushing Ben ahead while turning to face their pursuer. I'll hold him off. I'm not leaving you. Ben protested. Your watch isn't working, and you can't fight without it, Luck pointed out. Go. Find Asta and Noel. Reluctantly, Ben ran, hearing the sounds of combat erupt behind him, Luck's lightning crackling against the clash of metal. He didn't go far, though, ducking into another chamber and checking the Omnitrix again. Come on, he muttered. The dial was still red, but the color was intensifying, indicating it was almost recharged. From his hiding spot, Ben could hear Luck's battle. The lightning mage was holding his own but clearly facing a powerful opponent. Just as the Omnitrix finally turned green, ready for use, Ben heard Luck cry out in pain. Without hesitation, Ben activated the device, selecting the first alien that appeared. Cannonbolt. The transformation complete, Ben rolled into a massive yellow-armored ball and shot back toward the fight. He found Luck pinned against a wall by metal restraints, bleeding from several cuts. The Diamond Kingdom mage was approaching, more metal shards hovering around him. Hey, metalhead! Ben called. The mage turned, only to be flattened as Cannonbolt slammed into him at full speed. The impact sent him crashing through a stone column. Ben unrolled beside Luck, using his armored form's strength to tear away the metal restraints. You okay? Luck grinned despite his injuries. That was amazing. You just flattened him. Save the compliments for later, Ben said, helping Luck to his feet. We need to move. The Diamond Mage was already recovering, fury evident on his face. What manner of magic is this? No Clover Kingdom mage has transformation magic so complete. Not magic, Ben corrected. Just your everyday hero from another dimension. He rolled into a ball again, this time with Luck holding onto his shell, and barreled down the corridor away from their attacker. Which way to the exit? Ben asked as they moved. Left at the next junction, then straight up. Luck directed. They reached the junction just as another explosion rocked the dungeon. The ceiling began to crack alarmingly. This whole place is coming down. Ben realized. The Diamond Mages must be bringing it down to bury us. They sped toward the exit, now visible as a shaft of daylight ahead. As they approached, Ben could see Asta and Noel already near the entrance, fighting off the remaining Diamond Mages. Hold on. Ben warned Luck, then launched himself forward at maximum speed. Cannonbolt crashed into the battle like a wrecking ball, scattering the Diamond Mages and creating an opening for escape. Go, he shouted to Asta and Noel. The dungeon's collapsing. They didn't need to be told twice. Together, the four of them scrambled up the crumbling stairs toward daylight, the dungeon disintegrating behind them. They burst into the open air just as the entrance collapsed in a cloud of dust and debris. Finral, waiting nervously nearby, rushed to meet them. "What happened?" he demanded. "I felt the whole area shaking." "Diamond Kingdom ambush," Noelle explained breathlessly. "But we got what we came for." She held up the gauntlet, which was now dormant. "And the dungeon's toast," Asta added. "Along with whatever else was inside." Ben reverted to human form, exhausted but relieved. "Did all the diamond mages get out?" "I think so," Luck said, still grinning despite his injuries. "They were heading for another exit." "We should get back to the hideout," Finral advised, opening a portal. "Captain Yami will want to know what happened, and Luck needs medical attention." As they stepped through the portal, Ben glanced back at the ruins of the ancient dungeon, wondering what other secrets had been lost in its collapse, and what exactly had happened between the Omnitrix and the artifact they'd recovered. "So let me get this straight," Yami said after hearing their report. "The artifact magically connected to the Dimension Kid's watch, gave him some new combined transformation power, and then the Diamond Kingdom showed up and tried to bury you all alive?" "That about sums it up," Ben confirmed. They were gathered in the Black Bull's common room. Luck's injuries had been treated by the hideout's resident healing mage, and the artifact, now identified as the Gauntlet of Amalgamation, sat on the table between them. "And this gauntlet," Yami continued, poking it with his finger. "It's supposed to combine magical attributes?" Noelle nodded. "According to the inscriptions we found, it was created to allow mages to temporarily merge their magic with others. But it's never been used on something like Ben's device. The Omnitrix isn't designed to combine alien DNA," Ben explained. "It's supposed to provide pure samples of each species. Whatever this gauntlet did, it forced a fusion that shouldn't have been possible." "Can you still do it?" Asta asked eagerly. "The crystal fire combo was awesome." Ben shrugged. "I'm not sure. The Omnitrix hasn't shown that form again in the selection dial." "Try it," Yami suggested. Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through his available transformations. To his surprise, a new silhouette appeared, one he didn't recognize, with elements of both Diamond Head and Heat Blast. "It's there," he confirmed. "The Omnitrix must have recorded the hybrid as a new transformation." "This is a significant discovery," said a new voice. They turned to find Marx, the Wizard King's advisor, standing in the doorway with Finral, who looked apologetic. "He insisted on coming immediately," Finral explained. Marx stepped forward. "Lord Julius requests your presence at the capital, all of you, along with the artifact. He's most interested in this development with Ben's Omnitrix, was it?" Yami sighed. "No rest for the weary." Finral, portal to the capital. "Now." Finral looked exhausted. "I've been making portals all day." "Now," Yami confirmed, uncompromising. 20 minutes later, they stood in Julius Navachrono's private study, a circular room filled with magical instruments, ancient texts, and what appeared to be a model of the entire kingdom floating in the air. Julius practically bounded over when they entered, eyes immediately fixed on the gauntlet Noelle carried. "The Gauntlet of Amalgamation," he exclaimed. "I've read about this artifact but never thought I'd see it." He turned to Ben with equal enthusiasm. "And I understand it interacted with your device in a most unexpected way." Ben nodded. "It created a hybrid transformation combining two of my aliens." "Fascinating." Julius's eyes sparkled with scientific curiosity. "Would you be willing to demonstrate?" Ben looked to Yami, who shrugged. "It's your watch, kid." "I can try," Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. He found the new hybrid form and pressed the dial. The transformation was smoother this time. When the green light faded, Ben stood in the crystal fire form again, heat radiating from cracks in his mineral body. "Extraordinary." Julius circled him, studying the transformation from all angles. "A perfect fusion of attributes that should be contradictory, crystal and fire, existing in harmony. I'm calling it Magma Brilliant, Ben decided. Julius laughed delightedly. An appropriate name. Can you demonstrate its abilities? Ben obliged, creating crystal structures that burned with internal fire, launching flaming shards, and demonstrating how he could control both aspects independently or in concert. The implications are staggering, Julius said after Ben had reverted to human form. If the gauntlet can affect your transformations this way, perhaps it could create entirely new forms of magic for our mages as well. Is that wise? Yami asked. Messing with magic like that? Julius's expression grew more serious. Perhaps not immediately. We should study the artifact thoroughly before attempting such experiments. He turned to the Black Bulls. You've made a significant discovery today. The kingdom owes you its gratitude. Just doing our job, Asta said proudly. There's more, Noel added. The Diamond Kingdom seems unusually interested in this artifact. They sent multiple mages to retrieve it. Julius nodded thoughtfully. Not surprising. The Diamond Kingdom has been experimenting with artificial magic enhancements for years. An artifact that naturally combines magical attributes would be invaluable to their research. Should we expect them to try again? Ben asked. Almost certainly, Julius confirmed. Which is why the artifact will remain here, under royal protection, while we study it. He looked at Ben curiously. Though I am most interested in studying your Omnitrix as well, if you're willing. Ben hesitated. I'm not sure that's a good idea. The Omnitrix contains DNA from species across my universe. If it fell into the wrong hands. I understand, Julius assured him. But perhaps controlled experiments? Under supervision? The interaction between your technology and our magic could provide insights that help us find a way to return you home. Put that way, Ben found it hard to refuse. As long as no one tries to take it apart or remove it. Excellent. Julius clapped his hands together. We'll begin tomorrow. For now, you should all rest. You've earned it. As they prepared to leave, Marx entered with a message. Lord Julius, preparations for the Star Festival are nearly complete. Your presence is requested for the final arrangements. Ah, yes. Julius's eyes lit up again. Perfect timing. The Black Bulls must attend as honored guests, of course. And Ben, you simply must experience a Clover Kingdom festival. Festival? Ben asked. The annual Star Festival, Yami explained. Celebration where they announce which squad earned the most stars this year. Food, drinks, games, the whole capital turns into one big party. And this year, Julius added, we have even more reason to celebrate. It's been over a year since the last major devil incident. The kingdom is prospering. Morale is high. Ben couldn't help but smile at the Wizard King's enthusiasm. Sounds fun. It's settled then, Julius declared. You'll all attend as my special guests. Perhaps a public demonstration of your transformations, Ben. Nothing builds goodwill like a bit of spectacle. Yami groaned. Don't turn my squad into a circus act, Julius. Not a circus, heroes. Julius corrected. The public should know who's protecting them, especially with these new interdimensional complications. As they left the castle, Ben found himself walking beside Noelle, who had been unusually quiet. Everything okay? He asked. She glanced at him. Just thinking. The Star Festival means I'll likely encounter my family. They don't exactly approve of my joining the Black Bulls. Family issues, huh? Ben nodded sympathetically. Been there. Somehow I doubt your family is anything like mine, Noelle said dryly. Maybe not, Ben admitted. But I know what it's like to feel pressure to be something you're not. Before I found the Omnitrix, I was just an ordinary kid. After, suddenly everyone had expectations. Noelle seemed surprised by his insight. I suppose there are some parallels. Though in my case, the pressure was to be extraordinary because of my birth, not because of an artifact. Either way, it's a lot to handle, Ben said. For what it's worth, from what I've seen, you're doing a pretty amazing job with your magic. Especially during that dungeon fight. A faint blush colored Noel's cheeks. I've been practicing. Their conversation was interrupted by Asta, who bounded over with his usual energy. Hey! Are you too excited for the festival? There's gonna be so much food. Is food all you think about? Noel asked, though her tone lacked its usual sharpness. Food and becoming the Wizard King, Asta confirmed cheerfully. Oh, and training. And my friends. And, we get it, Ben laughed. You're a man of many interests. As they rejoined the others, Ben felt a strange sense of belonging. Despite being from another dimension, despite all the differences between his world and theirs, he was starting to feel at home with the Black Bulls. The thought gave him mixed feelings. He still needed, to find a way back to his own dimension. His family and friends would be worried sick. But there was no denying he was forming bonds here too. Complicated, he murmured to himself. What is? Asta asked, overhearing. Ben shook his head. Nothing. Just thinking about home. Asta's expression softened with understanding. We'll find a way to get you back. I promise. But until then. His face split into a wide grin. Festival time. The capital was transformed for the Star Festival. Streets overflowed with decorations, banners bearing the symbols of each Magic Knight squad, magical light displays that shifted and danced in the evening air, and vendor stalls offering everything from exotic foods to magical trinkets. Citizens packed the streets, many wearing clothes or accessories representing their favorite squad. Ben noticed the Golden Dawn seemed particularly popular, with their four-leaf clover emblem visible everywhere. The Golden Dawn usually wins the star competition, Asta explained, noticing Ben's observation. They're considered the elite squad. And we're usually last, Magna added, though he didn't seem particularly bothered. Quality over quantity, that's what I say. Ben had spent the day before the festival at the castle, working with Julius and a team of researchers to understand the interaction between the Omnitrix and the Gauntlet of Amalgamation. They discovered that the Gauntlet had somehow taught the Omnitrix to create its own hybrid forms, even without the artifact's presence. It's like it updated the software, Ben had explained, trying to use terms the magic-oriented researchers might understand. Now, walking through the festival with the Black Bulls, Ben felt strangely at ease. He'd transformed into Crash Hopper earlier at Julius's request, entertaining a crowd of children with his incredible jumps and acrobatics. The positive reception had been unexpected but heartwarming. The people really love Magic Knights, Ben observed as a group of young children ran past, wearing makeshift Black Bulls robes. We protect the kingdom, Asta said simply. Even if the nobles don't always respect the Black Bulls, the regular people know we're out there fighting for them. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion ahead, a crowd parting to make way for a procession of elegantly dressed individuals, their bearing unmistakably aristocratic. Oh no, Noel muttered. Royal families. Ben recognized the silver hair immediately, several of the newcomers shared Noel's distinctive trait. Your family, he guessed. Noel nodded stiffly. The House of Silva. My siblings. The leading Silva, a tall man with a severe expression, spotted Noel and altered course to approach their group. The other Black Bulls subtly positioned themselves around Noel, a protective formation that spoke volumes. Sister, the man greeted coldly. I see you're still with these people. Nozel, Noel replied, her chin raised. Yes, I'm still a proud member of the Black Bulls. Ben noticed how Noel's confident demeanor had instantly become more rigid, her voice taking on the formal quality he'd heard when they first met. Proud, another Silva, a woman with an elaborate hairstyle, scoffed. What pride is there in belonging to the worst squad in the Magic Knights? The squad that saved your royal butts more than once, Magna muttered, just loud enough to be heard. The woman's eyes narrowed. What was that, commoner? Solid, Nebra, Nozel interrupted, his gaze shifting to Ben. Who is this? I don't recognize him as a black bull. Before anyone could respond, Julius appeared, seemingly from nowhere. Ah, House Silva. I see you've met our interdimensional visitor, the Wizard King said cheerfully. Ben Tennyson is temporarily assisting the Black Bulls while we research a way to return him to his world. The Silva's expressions registered varying degrees of shock. Interdimensional? Nozel repeated, studying Ben more carefully. You're claiming he's from another world, Lord Julius? Not claiming, stating a fact, Julius corrected, still smiling. Ben possesses unique transformation abilities unlike any magic in our kingdom. Quite fascinating, really. Ben could practically see the calculations happening behind Nozel's eyes, re-evaluating, reassessing. Transformation magic is nothing special, Solid dismissed. Our sister could barely manage water magic, so I'm not surprised she's impressed by party tricks. Ben felt a surge of anger at the casual cruelty, but before he could respond, the Omnitrix on his wrist began to pulse with an alert pattern he'd never seen before. Unknown energy signature detected, it announced. Caution advised. What's that? Julius asked, immediately interested. The Omnitrix is picking up something, Ben explained, checking the device. Something it doesn't recognize. A sudden scream from the far side of the festival square interrupted them. People began running in panic, and a plume of dark smoke rose above the crowd. What now? Yami growled, hand moving to his sword. The crowd parted to reveal the source of the disturbance, creatures unlike anything Ben had seen in this world. They resembled the shadow beasts from the forest but were more substantial, with physical forms that seemed cobbled together from different animals. Most disturbingly, each had a small device embedded in its body that pulsed with the same energy the Omnitrix had detected. Devils? Asta asked, drawing his sword. Not exactly, Julius said, his cheerful demeanor replaced with serious focus. These are something new. The creatures spotted their group, or more specifically, they spotted Ben. As one, they charged toward him, ignoring everyone else. They're after you. Noel realized. Story of my life, Ben muttered, activating the Omnitrix. The dial displayed the hybrid form he'd discovered in the dungeon. Without hesitation, Ben selected it, transforming into magma brilliant just as the first creature lunged. The battle erupted in the middle of the festival square. Citizens fled while magic knights from all squads converged on the disturbance. Ben found himself fighting alongside knights he'd never met, each using their unique magic to combat the strange creatures. They're resistant to regular magic. Someone shouted after a fire spell merely slowed one of the beasts. Ben discovered his hybrid form was more effective. The flaming crystal shards he launched pierced the creature's hides, causing the embedded devices to short out. Aim for the devices, he called to the others. The metal objects embedded in their bodies. The magic knights adjusted their strategy, focusing their attacks more precisely. Asta's anti-magic proved especially effective, his black sword cutting through the creatures with ease. In the midst of battle, Ben noticed something unusual: the creatures weren't trying to kill him. They were attempting to capture him, targeting his limbs rather than vital areas, trying to overwhelm rather than harm. They want me alive, he realized aloud. That's rarely a good sign, Yami commented, slicing through one of the larger beasts with his dark magic-enhanced blade. The battle turned in their favor as more magic knights joined the fray. The Golden Dawn squad arrived in force, led by a young man with a four-leaf clover grimoire who could create incredible plant constructs. Between his magic, Asta's anti-magic, and Ben's hybrid form, they soon had the creatures on the defensive. As the last few beasts were cornered, one of them suddenly convulsed. The device in its chest pulsed rapidly, then projected a holographic image into the air. Ben froze, instantly recognizing the figure, Vortex, the dimensional being he'd encountered in the forest. Interesting, the projected Vortex said, his vortex face swirling. So many magical warriors to defend you, Tennyson. This world has more resources than I anticipated. Vortex, Ben growled. Should have known you were behind this. The holographic figure turned slightly, acknowledging Julius's approach. Ah, the leader of these magic users. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. I wish I could say the same, Julius replied, his usual cheerful demeanor replaced with calm authority. You've attacked innocent citizens of my kingdom. A regrettable necessity, Vortex replied dismissively. I merely need the boy and his device. Provide them, and I'll trouble your dimension no further. Not happening, Ben said. Vortex's vortex face pulsed. Then I will simply take what I need. The hologram turned back to Ben. Your Omnitrix has begun adapting to this world's magical energies. Fascinating development. It makes you even more valuable. What do you want with Ben? Asta demanded, stepping forward with his sword. What any researcher wants, Vortex replied. To study a unique specimen. The Omnitrix's interdimensional adaptability is unprecedented. Combined with this world's magic. The hologram made a gesture like spreading hands. The possibilities are endless. You're not getting the Omnitrix, Ben stated firmly. We shall see. The hologram flickered. Until our next meeting, Ben Tennyson. And there will be a next meeting. The projection vanished, and the remaining creatures collapsed, the devices in their bodies going dark. For a moment, silence hung over the festival square, broken only by the crackling of fires and the moans of the injured. Then Julius stepped forward. Captains, secure the area. Medical units, attend to the wounded. I want these creatures and their devices collected for study. Ben reverted to human form, feeling drained. I'm sorry about this. Vortex is after me, not your kingdom. Julius shook his head. This is not your fault, Ben. But it does confirm my suspicions. Your presence here, while accidental, has drawn attention from forces beyond our normal understanding. Which means we need to figure out how to send the kid home, Yami concluded, joining them. Before this Vortex character escalates. Or, Julius said thoughtfully, we need to capture Vortex himself. He clearly possesses knowledge of dimensional travel that could help Ben return home. Asta punched his fist into his palm. Then that's what we'll do. Capture this Vortex guy and make him send Ben back. Ben couldn't help but smile at Asta's straightforward approach. It's not that simple. Vortex can move between dimensions at will. Catching him won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is, Julius said with a hint of his usual enthusiasm returning. For now, let's focus on studying these creatures and their devices. They may provide clues to Vortex's methods. As the cleanup began, Ben found himself surrounded by curious magic knights from other squads, all wanting to know about the interdimensional visitor, who could transform into strange magical beings. It's like being a celebrity, Ben muttered to Noelle. Get used to it, she replied. After tonight, every magic knight in the kingdom will know who you are. Ben wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. Attention had never bothered him back home. Being a superhero came with a certain amount of fame, but here, it felt different. More complicated. Later that evening, after the festival had been partially restored and celebrations cautiously resumed, Ben found himself in a quiet corner of the palace gardens with Julius. The Wizard King had requested a private conversation away from the crowds. I've been studying the dimensional aspects of magic for many years, Julius revealed, gazing up at the stars. It's a fascinating field, though largely theoretical until now. You think you might be able to find a way to send me home? Ben asked hopefully. Julius sighed. Perhaps, given time. The problem is not simply sending you to another dimension, it's sending you to the correct dimension, the specific one you came from. There are infinite dimensions, Ben realized. Finding the right one would be like finding a specific grain of sand on a beach. Precisely. Which is why Vortex may be our best option. Julius turned to face Ben directly. He found you once, which means he can identify your specific dimensional signature. If we could capture him, or at least study his methods, we might be able to use that to find my home, Ben finished. Julius nodded. In the meantime, I believe it would be best if you continued working with the Black Bulls. They're unconventional, but effective. And they seem to have accepted you as one of their own. They have, Ben agreed, surprising himself with the warmth he felt at the thought. They're a lot like my team back home. Mismatched, sometimes dysfunctional, but they get the job done. Family comes in many forms, Julius observed with a smile. Even temporary ones. As they walked back toward the festival, Ben's thoughts drifted to his own world, to Gwen and Kevin, to Grandpa Max, to all the people who must be worried about him. For the first time since arriving, he felt a pang of genuine homesickness. But looking ahead, where Asta was enthusiastically trying to teach Noelle some festival game while she pretended to be annoyed, Ben also felt something else, a sense of belonging that he hadn't expected to find in this strange magical world. One problem at a time, he reminded himself. First, deal with Vortex. Then find a way home. And in the meantime, maybe being a temporary Black Bull wouldn't be so bad after all. In the shadows beyond the festival's light, a figure watched the proceedings with keen interest. Not Vortex, but someone else, a woman in elaborate robes decorated with ancient symbols, her eyes unnaturally violet as they tracked Ben's movements across the square. So, she murmured to herself, the rumors are true. A visitor from beyond, with power not of our world. She extended a hand, revealing a strange device on her palm that pulsed with energy similar to Vortex's creatures. How very, very interesting. A small shadow creature materialized beside her. Shall we take him now, Mistress Eclipsia? Patience, she cautioned. Vortex's direct approach failed, as I knew it would. These magic knights are formidable protectors. Her lips curved into a smile. We will use subtler methods. The shadow creature tilted its head. The artifact from the dungeon? Yes, Eclipsia confirmed. The gauntlet is merely the first piece. With it and the boy's device, we can finally access the power I've sought for decades. She closed her hand, the strange device disappearing into her sleeve. Continue monitoring him. I want to know everything about his transformations, especially the new hybrid forms. As you wish, mistress. As the shadow creature dissolved into the night, Eclipsia cast one final glance toward Ben, who was laughing with Asta at something Julius had said. Enjoy your new friends while you can, Ben Tennyson, she whispered. Soon, your power will serve a greater purpose than you can imagine. With that, she stepped backward into a ripple in the air and vanished, leaving only a faint trace of ancient magic lingering in her wake. Chapter 3, Heroes of Two Worlds. Ben woke at dawn to find Captain Yami standing over his bed. Rise and shine, Dimension Boy, Yami said, blowing cigarette smoke directly into Ben's face. Today's your big day. Ben coughed, waving away the smoke. What big day? And has anyone ever mentioned knocking? Knocking is for people who care about privacy, Yami replied with a shrug. And your big day is the Magic Knight's rookie assessment. Julius convinced the other captains to let you participate. That got Ben's attention. He sat up quickly. Assessment? Like a test? Sort of. It's normally for new recruits to show off their skills, prove they deserve their squad robes. Yami's perpetual grin widened. In your case, it's more like an audition. Ben groaned. Great. More people staring at the Dimension Freak. Look at it this way, Yami said, heading for the door. Impress them, and maybe they'll put more resources into finding you a way home. Breakfast in 10 minutes. Finral's portal leaves in 30. After Yami left, Ben stared at the Omnitrix. Since the incident at the festival 3 days ago, he'd been training constantly with different squad members, learning more about how his transformations interacted with this world's magic. The hybrid form, Magma Brilliant, had stabilized, and he could access it reliably now. But would it be enough to impress a bunch of magic captains who'd spent their whole lives studying arcane powers? Only one way to find out, he muttered. Downstairs, the Black Bulls were unusually organized. Everyone was dressed in clean squad robes, even Charmy, who normally had food stains all over hers. Ben! Asta called out excitedly. Today's gonna be awesome. The assessment is at Magic Knight's headquarters with all the captains watching. No pressure or anything, Noelle added dryly, though she gave Ben an encouraging nod. Magna slapped Ben on the back hard enough to make him stumble. Just remember what I taught you about magical combat positioning. And my lessons on reading magical energy flows. Luck added, electricity crackling around him as usual. And don't forget proper etiquette when addressing nobility, Noelle interjected. Ben held up his hands. Guys, I appreciate it, but I think I'll just stick to what I know, hero time. Portals ready. Finral called from the corner of the room, his spatial magic creating a shimmering doorway. Headquarters courtyard, as requested. The entire squad filed through the portal, emerging into the grand courtyard of Magic Knight's headquarters. Ben had been here before, but never when it was so busy. Magic Knights from all squads milled about, many stopping to stare at the Black Bulls, and especially at Ben. They're all looking at me, Ben muttered. Well, yeah, Vanessa replied, smoothing her witch's hat. You're the Dimension boy with the fancy watch. News travels fast in the capital. Captain Yami led them toward a section of the courtyard where the other squad captains had gathered. Ben recognized some from the festival incident, the stern-faced Nozel Silva, a flamboyant man in a feathered robe, a woman with a prickly plant growing from her head, and several others. In the center of them all stood Julius, beaming like a proud parent. Ah, the Black Bulls have arrived, the Wizard King announced. And our special participant. Excellent. One of the captains, a lion-like man with fiery hair, stepped forward with a skeptical expression. This is the outsider. The one who transforms. He doesn't look like much. Neither does your brain, Fugolian, but we still let you be a captain, Yami shot back. Before the lion man could respond, Julius intervened. Now. The assessment will begin shortly. Ben, are you prepared to demonstrate your abilities? Ben nodded, feeling the weight of so many magical gazes. As ready as I'll ever be. Excellent. Julius clapped his hands. The assessment will take place in 3 stages: combat, problem-solving, and teamwork. Normally, rookies compete against each other, but in your case, we've arranged special challenges. Special how? Ben asked, suspicious. Julius's smile didn't waver. You'll see. Now, let's proceed to the arena. The arena turned out to be an enormous circular field surrounded by stadium-style seating, much of which was already filled with Magic Knights from various squads. As Ben walked out with the Black Bulls, he felt like a gladiator entering the Colosseum. First challenge, Julius announced from a raised platform, combat assessment. A gate opened on the far side of the arena, and a hulking figure stepped through, one of the Blue Rose Knights, a woman nearly 7 feet tall with muscles that would make professional wrestlers jealous. Sol Marin will test your combat capabilities, Julius explained. No need to hold back, Magic Knight's arenas are reinforced against damage. Is this really necessary? Ben asked Yami quietly. The captain grinned around his cigarette. Think of it as your initiation. Everyone goes through something like this. Sol cracked her knuckles and grinned across the arena. So you're the one who turns into monsters. Let's see how you handle a real Magic Knight. Ben sighed and stepped forward into the center of the arena. For the record, I don't think this is a great idea. Begin. Julius called. Sol didn't waste time. The ground beneath Ben's feet erupted as massive earth constructs burst upward, forcing him to dive aside. More pillars of stone shot toward him from multiple directions. Okay. Ben activated the Omnitrix as he rolled behind a boulder. Hero time it is. In a flash of green light, Ben transformed into Diamond Head. The crystal alien stepped out from behind the boulder just as Sol smashed it to rubble with an earth hammer. Whoa! Sol's eyes widened briefly before her battle grin returned. Crystal magic. Not bad, but earth beats crystal. She slammed her palms on the ground, sending a wave of stone spikes toward Ben. He planted his feet and raised his hands, creating a crystal barrier that the stone shattered against. Not crystal magic, Ben corrected, morphing his arm into a blade. Petrosapien biology. He slashed through her next earth construct with ease, then launched crystal shards that pinned her sleeve to a nearby boulder. Sol laughed. Now it's getting fun. She flexed, tearing free of the crystal pins, and summoned what looked like a golem made of packed earth. Let's see how you handle this. The golem charged, and Ben braced for impact, only to realize at the last second it was a distraction. The real attack came from below as stone hands erupted from the ground to grab his legs. Clever, Ben admitted as the golem's fist connected with his chest, sending him flying backward. He landed hard but immediately rolled to his feet. The captains were watching closely, evaluating his every move. Time to show them something new. Ben slammed the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, triggering a mid-battle transformation. Green light flashed, and where Diamond Head had stood, a red, manta ray-like alien now hovered. Jetray, he announced, taking to the air. Sol looked surprised but recovered quickly. Flying won't save you. She raised massive columns of earth, trying to box him in. Ben weaved through them with Jetray's incredible speed, then fired neuroshock blasts from his eyes and tail that shattered her earth constructs. From the stands, he could hear Asta cheering wildly. That's it, Ben. Show em what you can do. The captains were talking among themselves now, clearly impressed by his ability to change forms mid-battle. Time to finish this with style. Ben swooped down, dodging another earth attack, and hit the Omnitrix again. This time he transformed into Humongosaur, landing with enough force to crater the arena floor. Sorry about this, he told Sol, then charged forward. What followed was a straight-up brawl, Humongosaur's raw strength against Sol's earth-enhanced power. The entire arena shook with their collisions. But Ben had been fighting supervillains since he was 10 years old, and his battle experience showed. He found patterns in Sol's attacks, predicted her movements, and finally caught her in a hold that pinned her arms. I think that's match, Ben said. Sol struggled briefly, then laughed and tapped his arm. I yield. That was a great fight. The arena erupted in cheers, not just from the Black Bulls but from many of the watching Magic Knights. As Ben released Sol and reverted to human form, he saw genuine respect in many of the faces that had earlier shown skepticism. Excellently done. Julius called as Ben returned to the Black Bulls section. A fine display of adaptive combat. Yami nodded approvingly. Not bad, kid. You didn't even need to use your fancy new hybrid form. Saving something for the next challenge, Ben replied with a grin. The next phase, problem-solving, proved equally challenging. Ben was presented with a magical labyrinth that reconfigured itself continuously. The goal was to retrieve a golden medallion from the center and return it to the entrance in under 10 minutes. This tests a Magic Knight's ability to think on their feet and use their magic creatively, Julius explained. Ben entered the labyrinth alone, watching as the walls shifted around him. Going big and strong wouldn't help here, he needed intelligence. Time for the brainy approach, he muttered, activating the Omnitrix and transforming into gray matter. The tiny alien's enhanced intellect immediately began analyzing the labyrinth's patterns. There was a logic to the shifting walls, they moved according to magical formulas carved into the floor in tiny runes. Fascinating, Grey Matter observed, scurrying along the floor. The runes create a predictable sequence with a 42-second cycle. By timing the wall movements and utilizing his small size to slip through gaps, Grey Matter reached the center in just over 3 minutes. The golden medallion sat on a pedestal, guarded by a shimmering barrier. A magical lock keyed to the specific mana signature of whoever enters, Grey Matter deduced, examining the barrier. But I don't have mana, I have the Omnitrix. He transformed into Big Chill, phasing through the barrier to retrieve the medallion. But as soon as he touched it, the labyrinth's shifting accelerated dramatically. Should have seen that coming, Ben muttered, clutching the medallion as walls crashed together all around him. Using Big Chill's intangibility and flight, Ben raced back toward the entrance, the labyrinth literally collapsing behind him. He phased through the final wall just as his transformation timed out, stumbling through the entrance as human Ben with seconds to spare on the challenge clock. Innovative use of multiple forms. Julius declared, clearly delighted. Most participants try to force their way through with power alone. The final challenge tested teamwork. Ben was paired with Asta, Noel, and Luck to retrieve multiple flags from an obstacle course while defending against attacks from other magic knights. "This one's gonna be fun," Luck said with his battle-hungry grin. "They've got Langris from Golden Dawn and Kirsch from Coral Peacock trying to stop us. Those are some of the strongest magic knights in the kingdom," Noel explained to Ben. "Spatial magic and cherry blossom magic, both incredibly versatile." "Then we'll just have to be more versatile," Ben replied, already planning his strategy. The teamwork challenge proved to be the most difficult. Langris could erase space itself with his magic, while Kirsch created blinding, disorienting cherry blossom vortexes. Ben cycled through several aliens, Swampfire to counter the cherry blossoms, XLR-8 to grab flags at super speed, Cannonbolt to barrel through Langris's spatial traps. But it was the coordination with his Black Bull's teammates that truly impressed the watching captains. Ben used Upchuck to swallow and redirect Langris's spatial magic while Luck provided a lightning distraction. He transformed into Goop to shield Noelle as she used her water magic to wash away Kirsch's cherry blossoms. And when Asta needed a boost to reach a high flag, Ben became 4 arms just long enough to throw him up to it. For the final flag, Ben unleashed his hybrid form, Magma Brilliant. The crystalline fire alien created platforms for his teammates while launching flaming crystal shards to counter both opponents simultaneously. The combination of crystal's durability and fire's offensive power proved overwhelming. When the challenge ended, the Black Bulls had secured all their flags, though not without taking some hits. Asta was singed, Noelle soaked, and Luck's hair stood even more on end than usual from excess electricity. Ben, back in human form, sported a few scrapes but couldn't stop grinning. They'd worked together perfectly. The captains assembled to discuss the assessment while the participants waited. Ben found himself surrounded by magic knights from other squads, all curious about his transformations. "How many different forms do you have? Can you do partial transformations? Is it true you're from another world entirely?" The questions came from all sides until Yami stepped in, his intimidating presence creating an instant buffer zone. "Back off and let the kid breathe," he growled. "You'll all get your chance to see more when he's officially part of the squad." "Official?" Ben asked, surprised. Yami just winked. A horn sounded, calling everyone to attention as Julius stepped forward again. After careful consideration, the Wizard King announced, "The captains have come to a unanimous decision regarding our special participant." Ben held his breath. He hadn't realized until that moment how much he wanted their approval, not just for practical reasons, but because he'd come to respect these powerful mages. Ben Tennyson has demonstrated courage, intelligence, adaptability, and teamwork, all qualities we value in Magic Knights, Julius continued. Therefore, until such time as he returns to his own dimension, he is hereby granted honorary status as a member of the Black Bulls squad. The Black Bulls erupted in cheers. Asta pounded Ben's back enthusiastically while Magna and Luck hoisted him onto their shoulders. One of us. One of us. Charmy chanted, dancing around them. Julius gestured for silence, his smile wider than ever. Furthermore, in recognition of his unique abilities, we have created a special designation, Interdimensional Magic Knight Consultant. This position grants Ben access to the resources of Magic Knight headquarters for research into dimensional magic that might help him return home. Ben was speechless. He'd expected to be tolerated, maybe even welcomed to stay with the Bulls, but not this level of acceptance. As the ceremony concluded, Yami approached with something draped over his arm, a black bull's robe, but with subtle modifications. The gold trim included small green hourglass symbols matching the omnitrix, and the fabric seemed specially reinforced. Custom made, Yami explained, tossing it to Ben. Figured your transformations might need something that can stretch a bit. Ben ran his fingers over the fabric. Is this made from metamorphic thread? Noelle confirmed, looking pleased with herself. Royal family connection has some perks. It'll adjust to most of your transformations. Try it on, try it on. Asta urged. Ben slipped the robe over his shoulders. It fit perfectly, with enough room for movement but not so loose that it would get in his way. The weight of it felt significant, not just physically, but symbolically. For the first time since arriving in this dimension, Ben truly felt like he belonged. Speech. Vanessa called out, already working on her third celebratory drink. Ben laughed, slightly embarrassed. I don't know what to say. When I first got here, all I wanted was to find a way home. And I still do, but... He looked around at the Black Bulls, at Julius, at the Magic Knights who had accepted him. I never expected to find another family along the way. So thank you, for the trust, for the help, and for making a stranger from another dimension feel at home. Enough sappy stuff, Yami interrupted, though his eyes showed a hint of approval. We've got work to do. Dimensional weirdo still on the loose, remember? And just like that, the celebration shifted to strategy. Julius gathered the captains and the Black Bulls to discuss the threat posed by Vortex and his mysterious creatures. Analysis of the devices recovered from the festival attack has yielded some insights, Julius explained. They appear to be a fusion of technology and magic, similar in some ways to Ben's Omnitrix, though far cruder. Vortex is trying to replicate the Omnitrix's functions using this world's magic, Ben realized. That's why he's so interested in me. Precisely, Julius confirmed. But there's more. We've detected similar energy signatures in several locations throughout the kingdom, particularly in the mountains bordering the Spade Kingdom. The strong magic region, Noelle said with a frown. That area has some of the most dangerous magical anomalies in the kingdom. Julius nodded. We believe an organization called the Shadow Hand has established bases there. From what we've gathered, they specialize in capturing and studying unusual magical phenomena. And I'm definitely unusual, Ben concluded. The captains and I have agreed on a course of action, Julius continued. A small team will infiltrate the primary Shadow Hand base to gather intelligence on their connection to Vortex and these hybrid devices. Yami grinned at Ben. Guess who's going on their first official Black Bulls mission? 2 days later, Ben found himself crouched on a forested ridge overlooking what appeared to be an abandoned mine entrance. Beside him were Asta, Noelle, and to his surprise, Gordon, the mumbling, creepy-looking Black Bull who specialized in curse magic. You sure this is the place? Ben whispered. Gordon mumbled something unintelligible. He says his curse detection magic confirms this is it, Asta translated. The entrance is disguised with concealment magic, but the amount of cursed items inside creates a signature he can track. Ben raised an eyebrow. You understood all that from his mumbling? Asta grinned. We're friends. Friends understand each other. Noelle rolled her eyes. Regardless, our orders are clear. This is an intelligence mission only. We locate information about the Shadow Hand's connection to Vortex, then report back. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Stealth mode it is, Ben agreed, activating the Omnitrix. And I know just the alien for the job. In a flash of green light, he transformed into Big Chill, his moth-like alien form perfectly suited for infiltration. I'll never get used to that, Noel muttered. That's so cool. Asta whispered excitedly. You can go invisible. Intangible, actually, Ben corrected. I can pass through solid matter. I'll scout ahead and find a way in for the rest of you. Gordon mumbled again, pointing to a small device he'd created, for marble-sized orbs glowing with faint purple light. Communication curses, Noel explained, taking one. They'll let us talk to each other over short distances. Primitive but effective when we can't use magic openly. Each of them took one of the orbs. When Ben touched his, it seemed to phase partially into his Big Chill form, maintaining contact even while he was intangible. Clever, he acknowledged. I'll check the entrance and report back. Ben flew silently down the ridge, his blue form nearly invisible in the twilight shadows. As he approached the mine entrance, he could see what Gordon had detected, powerful concealment magic making the entrance appear abandoned and unsafe. He phased through the illusory barrier, finding himself in a well-maintained tunnel lined with magical lighting crystals. Guards in dark uniforms patrolled at regular intervals, each wearing a small emblem that matched the devices from the festival creatures, a hand emerging from a shadowy portal. Entrance is guarded, Ben reported through the communication orb. But there's a ventilation shaft about 50 yards to the east that looks unmonitored. On our way, Noel responded. Ben continued deeper into the facility, passing through walls and floors to gain a better understanding of the layout. The base was larger than he'd expected, multiple levels cut into the mountain, with laboratories, barracks, and what appeared to be holding cells for something. Most were empty, but a few contained shadowy forms similar to the creatures from the festival. Eventually, he found what looked like a central command room. Maps covered the walls, many marked with locations throughout the Clover Kingdom. One entire section was dedicated to something labeled, Interdimensional Visitor, with crude sketches of some of Ben's alien forms. They've been tracking me, Ben realized. He phased into an adjacent room that appeared to be an archive of sorts. Scrolls and books lined the shelves, many looking ancient. At a desk in the center, a robed figure was studying a particularly old text with intense concentration. Ben floated closer, careful to remain invisible and intangible. The text was written in symbols he didn't recognize, but the illustrations were clear enough, diagrams of portals between worlds, creatures passing through, and what appeared to be a central device controlling it all. The others need to see this, Ben decided, returning to the ventilation shaft where his teammates were now carefully making their way inside. Found something, he reported quietly. An archive room with texts about dimensional travel. And they're definitely tracking me, they have information about my transformations. Lead the way, Asta whispered, his anti-magic sword strapped to his back. Ben guided them through the complex, avoiding guard patrols by timing their movements carefully. Gordon proved unexpectedly useful, his curse magic allowing him to temporarily blind magical detection wards they encountered. When they reached the archive room, the robed figure had left, giving them a chance to examine the texts. These are ancient, Noel whispered, carefully turning pages of one book. Predating the Clover Kingdom by centuries. Gordon mumbled something, pointing to a symbol that appeared repeatedly. The Eye of the Other Side, Noel translated. It's a mythical artifact supposedly capable of viewing other dimensions. Not so mythical anymore, Ben said, pointing to a newer document beside the ancient text. Look at this. The document contained what appeared to be research notes in a more modern hand. Ben couldn't read the language, but Noel could. They believe they've located the Eye of the Other Side in ruins beneath the capital, she translated, skimming quickly. And they've been working with someone called Eclipsia. To activate it using energy from the visitor's device. My Omnitrix, Ben concluded grimly. Asta had moved to examine the maps on the wall. Guys, these markers show attacks throughout the kingdom, all places Ben has been. They've been tracking his energy signature. There's more, Noel continued reading. They need 3 components to fully activate the eye, the Gauntlet of Amalgamation, energy from the Omnitrix, and something called the Void Catalyst. The Gauntlet is secure in the capital, Ben said. But what's the Void Catalyst? Gordon suddenly froze, his eyes widening. He urgently mumbled something that had Asta immediately on alert. Someone's coming. Asta whispered. They quickly moved to hide behind shelves and under desks. Ben remained in big chill form, invisible but ready to act if needed. The door opened, and 2 figures entered, the robed researcher from earlier, and a woman Ben had never seen before. She wore elaborate robes decorated with ancient symbols, and her eyes glowed with an unnatural violet light. The preparations are nearly complete, Mistress Eclipsia, the researcher reported. With the information gathered from the festival attack, we've refined our understanding of the visitor's device. Excellent, the woman, Eclipsia, replied. Her voice had an odd resonance, as if multiple people were speaking at once. And the Void Catalyst? Secured, as you ordered. Vortex delivered it personally. Eclipsia smiled. Good. The alignment occurs in 3 days. Once we have the visitor and his device, we can proceed with the ritual. And the gauntlet? The researcher asked. It remains in Wizard King Julius's possession. Leave that to Vortex, Eclipsia replied dismissively. His creatures will create a distraction while I retrieve it personally. The researcher bowed. As you wish, mistress. As they continued discussing details of their plan, Ben relayed what he was hearing through the communication orb. Noel and Asta exchanged alarmed glances, while Gordon's expression grew increasingly troubled. They're planning to attack the capital, Noel whispered. We need to warn the Wizard King. Ben agreed, but before they could move, Gordon accidentally knocked a book from a shelf. The sound, though slight, was enough to alert Eclipsia. We are not alone, she said suddenly, her violet eyes scanning the room. Show yourselves. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Eclipsia raised her hand, and a pulse of magic swept through the room like a wave of pressure. Ben remained unaffected in his intangible state, but his teammates weren't so lucky. The pulse revealed their hiding places, disrupting Gordon's concealment curse. Eclipsia's eyes narrowed as she spotted Asta, Noel, and Gordon. Magic knights, she spat. Black bulls, by your robes. How inconvenient. Asta immediately drew his sword, while Noel prepared her water magic. Gordon stepped forward, dark curse magic swirling around his hands. What are you planning with the eye of the other side? Noel demanded. Eclipsia laughed. Curious little royalty. You've stumbled upon matters beyond your comprehension. Her gaze swept the room again. But where is the visitor? I sense his energy nearby. Ben made a split-second decision. Remaining invisible, he flew to the other side of the room and knocked over a shelf, creating a distraction. Over there, the researcher shouted. As Eclipsia turned toward the noise, Ben gave his teammates the signal through the orb, run. I'll cover you. Asta didn't waste the opportunity. He slashed his sword through a nearby wall, his anti-magic cutting through both physical matter and the magical reinforcements. This way. As his teammates escaped through the improvised exit, Ben became visible directly in front of Eclipsia. Looking for me? Her violet eyes widened. The visitor himself. How fortunate. She launched a spell that looked like chains of purple energy, but they passed harmlessly through Ben's intangible form. Sorry, can't touch this, Ben taunted, then exhaled a freezing breath that coated Eclipsia and the researcher in a thick layer of ice. The ice wouldn't hold her long, he could already see her magic melting it from within, but it gave him enough time to phase through the wall and follow his teammates. Alarms blared throughout the facility as they raced toward the exit. Guards converged from all directions, forcing them to fight their way out. Asta's anti-magic sword cut through magical barriers and attacks. Noel's improved water magic created shields and offensive lances with precision. Gordon's curse magic temporarily disabled magical weapons and devices. And Ben, switching from Big Chill to Heat Blast, provided covering fire, literally. Almost there. Asta called as they rounded a corner and saw the exit tunnel ahead. Just as freedom seemed within reach, a rift opened in the air before them. From it stepped Vortex, his vortex face swirling with energy. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, his voice resonating oddly. "After coming all this way to visit?" Ben stepped forward, flames wreathing his heat blast form. "Vortex. Working with the Shadow Hand now?" "A partnership of convenience," Vortex replied. "They have knowledge of this world's dimensional boundaries. I have the means to cross them." "And what does Eclipsia get out of it?" Noel demanded. Vortex's vortex face pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Ambition is a universal constant across dimensions. Eclipsia seeks power, specifically, the power to control the boundaries between worlds." Using the eye of the other side, Ben concluded. "And my Omnitrix?" "Precisely. Your device's ability to manipulate genetic codes across species has fascinating applications when combined with dimensional manipulation." Vortex gestured, and small rifts began opening around them. "Imagine rewriting reality itself as easily as your Omnitrix rewrites your DNA." "Not happening," Ben stated firmly. Vortex sighed, or made a sound approximating a sigh. "I had hoped to secure your cooperation voluntarily. The alternative is, Messier." From the rifts emerged more of the hybrid creatures they'd fought at the festival, but these looked different, more refined, with the technological components better integrated into their bodies. "Improved models," Vortex explained. "Benefit of working with local experts." "We don't have time for this," Ben told his teammates. "We need to warn the capital." Asta nodded, gripping his sword. "Then we fight through." Ben slammed the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming from Heat Blast to his hybrid form, Magma Brilliant. The crystalline fire alien towered over the creatures, heat radiating from cracks in his mineral structure. "You're not the only one who can combine powers," Ben told Vortex. The dimensional being actually stepped back, his vortex face swirling faster. "Fascinating. You've achieved stable hybridization already?" "Courtesy of the Gauntlet of Amalgamation," Ben replied, launching flaming crystal shards that exploded on impact with the creatures. What followed was chaos. Vortex opened more rifts, bringing in more creatures. Asta and Noel fought back to back, his sword and her water magic creating a formidable defense. Gordon's curse magic disrupted the technological components in the creatures, causing some to malfunction spectacularly. Ben focused on Vortex himself, trying to corner the dimensional being. But Vortex was maddeningly elusive, stepping through small rifts whenever Ben got close. "We can't keep this up forever," Noel called, her magic reserves visibly draining. "We don't have to," Ben replied. Just long enough to. His plan was interrupted by the arrival of Eclipsia, who burst through a wall in a wave of purple energy. "Enough games," she declared. Her eyes locked on Ben. "I need that device, and I need it now." She raised her hands, and the air itself seemed to distort. Ben felt the Omnitrix react strangely, the dial flickering between green and purple. "What are you doing?" he demanded, trying to maintain his transformation as it began to destabilize. "Ancient magic," Eclipsia explained with a cold smile. "Predating your science, transcending dimensional boundaries. Your device cannot resist it forever." Ben felt the hybrid form beginning to slip. The Omnitrix was fighting against whatever magic Eclipsia was using, but the conflict was causing instability in the transformation. Vortex observed with interest. "Impressive, Eclipsia. But remember, we need the device intact. It will be, she assured him, intensifying her spell. In a desperate move, Ben charged directly at Eclipsia, gathering all his remaining energy into his crystalline structure. Just before reaching her, he released it in an explosive burst of flaming shards and heat. The explosion rocked the entire facility, collapsing part of the tunnel. When the dust cleared, Ben had reverted to human form, the Omnitrix flashing red with emergency warnings. System destabilized, it announced in Asmitha's voice. Emergency reboot initiated. Now. Asta shouted, taking advantage of the confusion to break through the remaining creatures. Ben, come on. Ben staggered to his feet, dizzy from the forced transformation. Noel grabbed his arm, helping him run as Gordon provided covering fire with his curse magic. They burst into the open air, the facility partially collapsing behind them. But their escape was short-lived. Vortex appeared before them again, this time looking angry. You damage my base, attack my ally, and still think you can simply leave, he demanded. I think not. Before he could act, however, a new portal opened beside them, a spatial magic portal that Ben recognized. This way. Finral called from within the portal. Hurry. They didn't hesitate, diving through the portal as Vortex launched an attack that barely missed them. Finral closed the connection just in time, the dimensional energy dissipating harmlessly. They found themselves back at Black Bull's headquarters, where a concerned Yami and several other squad members waited. You're late, Yami observed mildly, though his eyes quickly assessed them for injuries. We've got trouble, Ben said, still catching his breath. Big trouble. The emergency meeting at Magic Knight's headquarters that night included all squad captains, the Wizard King, and several royal representatives. Ben and his teammates reported everything they'd discovered about the Shadow Hand, Eclipsia, and the plan involving the Eye of the Other Side. The attack is planned for 3 days from now, Noel concluded. During something called the alignment. Julius's normally cheerful expression had grown increasingly grave as they spoke. Now he nodded solemnly. The astral alignment, he confirmed. A rare magical phenomenon when the stars align in a configuration that dramatically amplifies certain types of magic, particularly dimensional and spatial magic. Perfect timing for activating an ancient dimensional artifact, Yami observed. Precisely, Julius agreed. The Eye of the Other Side is not merely legend, it's a powerful artifact created during the time of the first Wizard King. It was sealed away because of its dangerous potential. And now Eclipsia wants to use it, along with my Omnitrix and this Void Catalyst, to control dimensional boundaries, Ben summarized. But why? What does she gain? Power, said Nozel Silva, who had remained silent until now. Controlling the boundaries between dimensions means controlling what passes through them. Including devils, added another captain, William Vengeance of the Golden Dawn. If she could control which devils enter our world and bind them to her will. The implications didn't need explaining. A magic user with an army of devils at her command would be unstoppable. We must prepare for a coordinated attack, Julius decided. They need 3 components, the gauntlet in our possession, Ben's Omnitrix, and the Void Catalyst they already have. They'll come for both the gauntlet and Ben. Split our defense and weaken both, Yami concluded. Classic strategy. Then we don't split, Ben suggested. We use me as bait. All eyes turned to him. Explain, Julius prompted. They need me alive and the Omnitrix intact, Ben pointed out. Put me with the gauntlet, heavily guarded. When they come for both, we'll be ready with our full strength. It's risky, Fugolian Vermilion noted. If they capture you and the gauntlet, they'll have 2/3 of what they need. True, Ben acknowledged. But we have 3 days to prepare, and something they don't know about. Which is? Julius asked, intrigued. Ben smiled. The Omnitrix has been adapting to this world's magic ever since I arrived. After what happened with the gauntlet and again during the fight with Eclipsia, it started creating new hybrid forms on its own. Forms specifically attuned to the magical energy here. He activated the device, showing the captains how the dial now displayed several new silhouettes, combinations of his aliens that shouldn't have been possible. "Your device is evolving?" Julius asked, fascination overtaking his concern. "Adapting," Ben corrected. "And I think that's why Eclipsia and Vortex want it so badly. The Omnitrix isn't just a transformation tool anymore. In this world, it's becoming something that can bridge dimensions naturally." The captains exchanged glances, clearly reassessing the situation. "Very well," Julius decided. "We'll implement Ben's suggestion, with modifications. The Gauntlet and Ben will be protected in the central tower, while our forces prepare for a multi-pronged defense of the capital." He turned to the captains. "Begin evacuation of civilians from the central district. Position your squads according to their strengths. We have 3 days to prepare for war." As the meeting adjourned, Ben found himself approached by Julius and Yami. "Your Omnitrix," Julius said quietly. "How stable are these new hybrid forms?" Ben shrugged. "I don't know. The original hybrid was created by external magic from the Gauntlet. These new ones are being generated by the Omnitrix itself as it adapts to this world's magical energy. Untested in combat," Yami noted. "Risky. But potentially exactly what we need," Julius countered. "If the Omnitrix is truly adapting to our world's magic, it might be our best defense against Eclipsia's ancient magic." Ben nodded. "I'm willing to try. But I'll need time to practice with the new forms before the attack." "You'll have it," Julius assured him. "I'll assign Langris from Golden Dawn to work with you. His spatial magic might help you understand how the new forms interact with dimensional energies." As they left the meeting, Asta caught up with Ben. Despite the serious situation, the ash-blonde swordsman was grinning. "This is gonna be awesome," he declared. "You and me, fighting side by side to save the kingdom." "It's going to be dangerous," Ben pointed out. Asta shrugged. "Everything worth doing is dangerous. Besides, I've been training too. Wait until you see my new anti-magic technique." Ben couldn't help but smile at Asta's enthusiasm. "Looking forward to it." "Partners?" "Partners." Asta confirmed, bumping fists with Ben. For the next 3 days, the capital transformed into a fortress. Civilians were evacuated from central districts. Magic Knights established defensive positions at strategic points. Magical barriers were reinforced, and communication systems enhanced. Ben spent most of his time training with his new hybrid forms, discovering their capabilities and limitations. The most promising was a combination of XLR-8 and Diamondhead, a crystalline speedster he named Velocity Diamond, capable of creating crystal structures at super speed. Another successful hybrid merged Big Chill with Swampfire, creating a plant-based form that could phase through objects while releasing freezing spores, Frost Bloom, as Ben called it. But the most powerful, and most unstable, was a combination of Way Big and NRG, resulting in a towering form that radiated both cosmic and nuclear energy. Ben named it Cosmic Core, though he could only maintain the transformation for brief periods before the Omnitrix forced a reversion. "Incredible," Langris commented after watching Ben cycle through these forms. "Your device is creating combinations that mimic some of our most powerful magic. Velocity Diamond resembles time-space magic, while Frost Bloom has elements of both curse and plant magic. It's like the Omnitrix is learning from this world," Ben agreed. "The question is, will it be enough?" On the morning of the 3rd day, the day of the astral alignment, the capital gleamed under reinforced magical barriers. Every Magic Knight squad had deployed their strongest members. The Black Bulls, naturally, had stationed themselves nearest to Ben's position in the central tower. "No sign of unusual activity yet," Finral reported, using his spatial magic to check multiple locations simultaneously. "But the alignment begins at midday." Ben stood on the tower balcony, watching the preparations below. The Omnitrix was fully charged, ready for whatever came. Beside him, Julius studied the sky, where subtle magical patterns were beginning to form among the clouds. "It's starting," the Wizard King observed. "The magical energies are aligning. How will we know when they attack?" Ben asked. Julius smiled grimly. "Oh, I suspect it will be obvious." As if on cue, a massive magical signature flared at the edge of the city, a column of purple energy shooting skyward. "There's our answer," Julius said calmly. "Eclipsia has begun." Within minutes, reports flooded in from all directions. Shadow Hand operatives had launched coordinated attacks at multiple entry points. Strange creatures, more advanced versions of those they'd fought before, poured through rifts that opened throughout the city. And most concerning, massive magical disruptions were occurring around the old temple district where the eye of the other side was supposedly hidden. "It's time," Julius told Ben. "Are you ready?" Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling to one of his new hybrid forms. "As ready as I'll ever be." In a flash of green light, he transformed into Velocity Diamond, a streamlined crystalline form with XLR-8 speed-adapted structure but Diamond Head's crystalline composition. "Let's do this," he said, his voice resonating through his crystal form. The battle for the Clover Kingdom had begun. Ben raced through the tower, down to the courtyard where Asta waited with several other Black Bulls. The plan was for them to defend the central approach while other squads handled the perimeter. "They're coming from everywhere," Asta reported, his anti-magic sword already drawn. "Finral's been jumping between battlefields to coordinate our response." "How many?" Ben asked. "Hundreds of those creature things," Asta replied. "Plus Shadow Hand mages. And Vortex has been spotted near the eastern gate." "Eclipsia?" "Not yet. But there's huge magical energy gathering at the temple ruins." Ben nodded. "She's starting the ritual." "We need to." A massive explosion rocked the courtyard as a rift tore open directly above them. Through it poured a dozen of the largest shadow creatures they'd seen yet, each equipped with more advanced technological components. "Here we go," Asta shouted, leaping into action. The battle was intense from the first moment. Ben used Velocity Diamond's speed to create crystal barriers around civilians while launching precision attacks at the creatures. Asta's anti-magic proved devastating against both the creatures and the magical components of their technology. Other Black Bulls joined the fray, Magna with his fire baseball magic, Luck literally becoming lightning to strike multiple targets, Vanessa using her thread magic to redirect attacks away from allies. But the creatures kept coming, and reports from around the city indicated similar situations everywhere. The Magic Knights were holding their own but barely. After nearly an hour of continuous fighting, Ben and Asta found themselves momentarily alone in a section of the courtyard, catching their breath between waves. "They're not trying to break through," Ben realized, analyzing the attack patterns. "They're keeping us occupied while something else happens." Asta's eyes widened. "The gauntlet. It's a diversion." They raced back toward the central tower, only to find it under direct assault. Vortex himself hovered near the top, engaging Julius in a battle that warped the very air around them. Spatial magic from both combatants tore rifts that closed almost instantly, creating shockwaves of dimensional energy. "We need to help," Asta declared, rushing forward. Ben grabbed his arm. "Wait. Look." He pointed to a side entrance where shadows moved unnaturally. "Eclipsia's magic. She's using Vortex's attack as cover to infiltrate the tower from below." "So what do we do?" Asta asked. "Split up," Ben decided. "You help Julius against Vortex. I'll go after Eclipsia." But the plan was to stay together. "Plans change," Ben said, already transforming. This time he became Frost Bloom, the Big Chill/Swampfire hybrid. "I can phase through walls to catch up with her." "You're better against Vortex with your anti-magic." Asta hesitated, then nodded. "Be careful. That ancient magic of hers affected your watch last time. I'm counting on it, Ben replied cryptically, then phased through the tower wall. Inside, he quickly located Eclipsia's trail. Frozen footprints left by his previous form marked his path through the building. The tower was eerily empty, most defenders having been drawn to external threats. Ben found Eclipsia in the central chamber where the gauntlet was kept. She had already disabled the magical barriers and held the artifact in her hands, smiling triumphantly. 2 down, 1 to go, she murmured, turning to leave. Not so fast, Ben said, materializing before her. Eclipsia didn't seem surprised. The visitor. Right on schedule. You knew I'd come, Ben realized. Of course. The defenders would prioritize external threats, leaving internal security minimal. Basic strategy. She studied his hybrid form with interest. Another new transformation. Your device continues to exceed expectations. Sorry to disappoint, but you're not getting the Omnitrix, Ben told her, releasing freezing plant spores that surrounded Eclipsia. She waved her hand, and the spores dissipated. Ancient magic transcends elemental constraints, child. Your hybrid forms are impressive but limited by your understanding. Then explain it to me, Ben suggested, trying to keep her talking while he positioned himself between her and the exit. What exactly are you planning with the eye of the other side? Eclipsia smiled, apparently willing to indulge him. The multiverse is infinite, containing infinite variations of every world, every possibility. But the boundaries between dimensions are normally rigid, crossable only with great power or special circumstances. Like when Vortex pulled me here, Ben noted. Precisely. But the eye of the other side can change that. It can make the boundaries permeable, controllable. Her violet eyes gleamed with ambition. Imagine having access to the powers of every dimension, every variation of magic or technology that exists anywhere. With you controlling the access, Ben concluded. Someone must, Eclipsia replied reasonably. Better me than chaos. She raised her hand, and purple energy gathered around it. Now, enough conversation. The alignment peaks soon, and I need your device. Ben prepared to dodge, but instead of attacking him directly, Eclipsia targeted the ceiling above him. Stone and magical reinforcements collapsed, forcing him to phase reflexively. But as he did, she cast another spell, one that seemed to affect the phasing itself. Ben felt the hybrid form destabilize, the Omnitrix fluctuating between forms. With a flash of green light, he reverted to human form, the Omnitrix beeping warnings. Phase state disruption, Eclipsia explained. Your device can't maintain cohesion when the dimensional properties of your form are directly attacked. She approached Ben, who backed away cautiously. The Omnitrix adapts to threats, he warned her. It's already creating countermeasures to your magic. Perhaps, she acknowledged. But not quickly enough. She lunged forward, fingers reaching for the Omnitrix. Ben twisted aside, years of combat experience letting him evade her grasp. The Omnitrix was still recalibrating, flashing between red and green as it processed the magical attack it had encountered. Come now, Eclipsia said, sounding almost reasonable. You don't belong in this dimension anyway. Help me activate the eye, and I can send you home. Isn't that what you want? The offer was tempting, for about half a second. Not at the cost of this world, Ben replied firmly. These people took me in, made me one of them. I'm not betraying that. Eclipsia's expression hardened. Sentiment. How disappointing. She attacked again, this time with a spell that seemed to slow time around Ben. He fought through it, reaching for the Omnitrix as it finally stabilized, glowing green once more. Hero time, he muttered, transforming into one of his original aliens, Feedback, the conductoid who could absorb and redirect energy. Interesting choice, Eclipsia noted. But electrical manipulation won't help against ancient magic. Maybe not, Ben agreed, extending his antennae and plugs. But energy is energy. As Eclipsia launched another purple spell, Ben didn't dodge. Instead, he caught the energy with his plugs, absorbing it into his body. The sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced before, raw, primal power that made his entire form tingle. Impossible. Eclipsia gasped. You cannot simply absorb ancient magic. Seems like I can, Ben replied, his body now crackling with purple-tinged electricity. And what I absorb, I can redirect. He released the energy back at Eclipsia, the blast enhanced by feedback's natural amplification abilities. The ancient sorceress raised a barrier, but Ben's attack shattered it, sending her crashing into the wall. Before she could recover, Ben transformed again, this time into 4 arms, lifting a massive piece of fallen ceiling and using it to pin Eclipsia to the floor. Now, he said, leaning down to look her in the eye, about that gauntlet. But Eclipsia wasn't defeated yet. With a word in some ancient language, she dissolved into shadow, reforming several feet away. Clever boy, she acknowledged, clutching the gauntlet tightly. But you're too late. The alignment peaks in minutes, and Vortex has surely retrieved the void catalyst by now. As if on cue, an explosion rocked the tower. Through a newly created hole in the wall, Ben could see Vortex ascending into the sky, holding what looked like a small black cube, presumably the void catalyst. Eclipsia smiled triumphantly. Right on schedule. Before Ben could stop her, she too dissolved into shadow, reappearing outside the tower near Vortex. Ben transformed into Jet Ray, flying out to pursue them, but a barrage of shadow creatures intercepted him, forcing him to evade. By the time he broke through, Eclipsia and Vortex were already descending toward the temple ruins, where a column of purple energy now reached into the swirling magical patterns in the sky. Ben! Asta called, running toward him as he landed and reverted to human form. They've got the gauntlet and something else. The void catalyst, Ben confirmed. They're heading for the temple ruins to activate the eye of the other side. We need to stop them. Then let's go. Asta replied without hesitation. The other magic knights can handle the creatures. Together they raced toward the temple district, fighting through waves of shadow creatures and shadow hand operatives. Along the way, they were joined by Noelle, who looked battle-worn but determined. Everyone else is occupied with defense, she reported. It's just us. 3 against 2, Ben said. I like those odds. They reached the temple ruins just as Eclipsia and Vortex were completing their preparations. In the center of what had once been a grand temple stood an ancient device, a large, eye-shaped artifact surrounded by concentric rings of stone covered in runes. The gauntlet and void catalyst had been placed in specific positions around it. All we need now, Vortex said, turning toward the approaching heroes, is the final component. The Omnitrix, Ben stated. Not going to happen. Eclipsia smiled coldly. We don't need the physical device, just its energy signature. And you've kindly brought it right to us. Before Ben could react, the eye of the other side pulsed with energy. The Omnitrix responded immediately, the dial glowing brightly as the artifact attempted to draw power from it. What's happening? Asta demanded, readying his sword. It's trying to connect to the Omnitrix, Ben explained through gritted teeth, fighting the pull. Using the same principle as the gauntlet, but much stronger. Noelle launched a water attack at the artifact, but Vortex opened a rift that diverted it harmlessly away. Asta charged with his anti-magic sword, only for Eclipsia to create shadowy barriers that slowed his advance. The alignment peaks. Vortex announced as the magical patterns in the sky directly overhead intensified. Now, Eclipsia. The ancient sorceress began an incantation, her voice resonating with power as she drew on magic that hadn't been used in centuries. The eye of the other side responded, the concentric rings beginning to rotate as energy flowed from the gauntlet, the catalyst, and, increasingly, the Omnitrix. Ben fell to his knees, the connection between the artifact and the Omnitrix strengthening. Can't break the link, he gasped. Then use it. Asta shouted, still fighting through Eclipsia's shadow barriers. If it's connected to your watch, make it work for you. The suggestion sparked an idea. Ben stopped fighting against the connection and instead focused on the Omnitrix itself, mentally cycling through his transformations. If the eye was drawing energy from the device, perhaps he could control what energy it received. Come on, Omnitrix, he muttered. One more adaptation. The dial flashed rapidly, cycling through all his aliens before settling on a new pattern, one Ben had never seen before. Before he could question it, transformation energy engulfed him. The form that emerged was unlike any he'd used before. It combined elements of Alien X's cosmic appearance with Clockwork's time manipulation components and Upgrade's technological integration capabilities. Energy that matched the swirling patterns in the sky radiated from his body. What is this? Ben wondered aloud, his voice echoing with power. Dimensional shift detected, the Omnitrix announced in Asmitha's voice. Adaptive protocol engaged. Designation, Cosmic Override. Eclipsia and Vortex both stared in shock. Impossible, Vortex breathed. He's integrated with the alignment energy. Stop him. Eclipsia commanded. But it was too late. In this new form, Ben could see the connections between the eye, the artifacts, and his Omnitrix, see them and manipulate them. He reached out both physically and mentally, grasping the energy flows and redirecting them. No. Eclipsia screamed as the eye's rotation reversed. You'll destroy everything. Not everything, Ben replied calmly. Just your plan. With a gesture, he severed the connection between the eye and the void catalyst, causing the black cube to crack and dissolve into shadow. With another motion, he drew the gauntlet's energy into himself, integrating its amalgamation properties into his new form. Asta, Noel, now. Ben called. His friends didn't hesitate. Asta leaped forward, his anti-magic sword cutting through Eclipsia's defenses. Noel followed with a precisely aimed water lance that pinned Vortex against a stone column. Eclipsia, seeing her plan unraveling, unleashed her most powerful spell, a wave of ancient magic that distorted space itself. You think you can control dimensional power, child? I've studied it for decades. The spell struck Ben's cosmic override form, and was absorbed, integrated, repurposed. And I've been fighting threats across dimensions since I was 10, he replied. Experience beats study every time. With a final surge of power, Ben completed the reversal. The eye of the other side pulsed once more, then went dormant as the alignment passed its peak. The magical patterns in the sky began to dissipate. Vortex, seeing defeat, opened a rift to escape. But Ben, in this new form, could see the dimensional pathways clearly. With a gesture, he closed Vortex's rift. Not this time, Ben said. You wanted the power of the Omnitrix? Here it is. He channeled energy through the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, creating a containment field around Vortex that neutralized his dimensional abilities. Impossible, Vortex gasped. No technology could counter dimensional manipulation so completely. Not technology alone, Ben agreed. Technology adapted to this world's magic. The perfect counter to both of you. Eclipsia, however, was not so easily contained. With a final desperate spell, she attacked not Ben but the eye of the other side itself. If I cannot control it, no one will, she declared. The artifact cracked, releasing a surge of uncontrolled dimensional energy. Reality itself seemed to warp around them as the eye began to destabilize. It's collapsing. Noel shouted. It will tear open random portals across dimensions. Ben analyzed the situation quickly. His new form could sense the building catastrophe. The eye's destruction would indeed create uncontrolled rifts throughout the kingdom and possibly beyond, drawing in threats from countless dimensions. There was only one solution. I need to contain the energy, he told his friends. Channel it somewhere safe. How? Asta demanded. Ben pointed to the sky. Up. Away from the kingdom. I can create a controlled rift that will direct the energy into empty space. But the power required. Noelle began, understanding dawning on her face. Ben, no. The Omnitrix might not survive that kind of energy surge. Got a better idea? Ben asked with a sad smile. Before they could answer, he rose into the air, drawing the destabilizing energy from the eye into his cosmic override form. The strain was immediate and intense, even this powerful form wasn't designed to channel this much dimensional energy. Ben! Asta shouted from below. There has to be another way. It's okay, Ben called back. This is what heroes do. As he ascended higher, the energy building within him, Ben felt the Omnitrix beginning to overload. Warning symbols flashed across his form as the device struggled to maintain the transformation while containing the dimensional energy. Catastrophic overload imminent, the Omnitrix warned. Emergency protocols failing. Just a little longer, Ben urged it. Get high enough to release safely. He reached what he judged to be a safe altitude, well above the capital, into the upper atmosphere where any residual effects would dissipate harmlessly. With one final effort, he channeled the energy upward, creating a controlled rift that would direct it away from the Clover Kingdom. Omnitrix, Ben said, feeling the transformation beginning to fail, initiate emergency return protocol. Find home. Protocol acknowledged, the device responded, its voice distorted by the energy surging through it. Home coordinates uncertain. Multiple dimensional pathways detected. Choose the strongest, Ben instructed as the energy release began in earnest. Cosmic overrides form started to dissolve, the dimensional energy tearing through the transformation. Pathway selected, the Omnitrix confirmed. Warning, stability uncertain. Forced reversion imminent. The last thing Ben saw before consciousness faded was a rift opening before him, whether to his home dimension or somewhere else entirely, he couldn't tell. As the cosmic override form finally gave out, human Ben Tennyson fell through the rift, the Omnitrix sparking and cycling rapidly on his wrist. The rift closed behind him, and the sky above the Clover Kingdom cleared, dimensional energies dispersing harmlessly into space. On the ground, Asta and Noelle stared up in shock and dismay. He's gone. Asta asked, voice breaking. Noelle placed a hand on his shoulder, tears in her eyes despite her royal composure. He saved everyone. That's what magic knights do. Around them, the remaining shadow creatures dissolved as their controlling influence disappeared. Vortex, contained in Ben's energy field, remained trapped. Eclipsia lay unconscious, her connection to the ancient magic severed with the eye's destruction. The battle was over. The kingdom was saved. But at what cost? 1 week later, a solemn ceremony was held in the courtyard of Magic Knight's headquarters. All squads were present, along with nobility, royalty, and ordinary citizens who had heard the story of the interdimensional hero who had sacrificed himself to save their kingdom. Julius Navachrono stood before the assembled crowd, his usual cheerful demeanor subdued. Today we honor the courage and sacrifice of Ben Tennyson, he announced. Though he came to our world by accident, he embraced our struggles as his own. He fought alongside our magic knights, protected our citizens, and ultimately gave everything to preserve our kingdom from dimensional catastrophe. He unveiled a memorial, a statue depicting Ben in his human form, the Omnitrix clearly visible on his wrist. Around the base were smaller depictions of several of his alien forms. Though not born of our world, Ben Tennyson exemplified the qualities we value most in magic knights: courage, selflessness, and an unwavering commitment to protecting others. His name will be recorded in our histories alongside our greatest heroes. The Black Bulls stood together, wearing formal versions of their squad robes. Many had tears in their eyes, even Yami looked more somber than usual. In recognition of his service, Julius continued, I posthumously confer upon Ben Tennyson the rank of Senior Magic Knight of the Black Bull's squad, with all honors and recognition thereof. He placed a modified Black Bull's robe, similar to the one Ben had worn, with its Omnitrix pattern trim, at the base of the statue. Beside it, Asta laid Ben's communication orb from their stealth mission, while Noel added a small water creation shaped like the Omnitrix symbol. As the ceremony concluded, the crowd gradually dispersed. The Black Bulls lingered longest, none wanting to be the first to leave. "He might not be dead, you know," Luck said suddenly, breaking the silence. The others turned to him. "What do you mean?" Magna asked. "The rift he created," Luck explained. "I was watching with my lightning sensory magic. It wasn't just releasing energy, it was directional. Like it was going somewhere specific." "He did say something about an emergency return protocol," Noel recalled. "Maybe the Omnitrix tried to send him home. Or to another dimension entirely," Vanessa added. "There are infinite possibilities." Yami took a long drag on his cigarette. Either way, the kid made his choice. He saved a lot of people. That's what counts. "But if he's alive somewhere," Asta said, hope dawning on his face, "we could find him. Bring him back." Julius, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. "Perhaps. Vortex remains in our custody, and his knowledge of dimensional travel might prove useful. And the research we conducted on Ben's Omnitrix provided insights that our spatial magic users are already implementing." "So you're saying there's a chance?" Asta pressed. Julius smiled, a hint of his usual enthusiasm returning. "In my experience, Asta, there's always a chance. Especially when it comes to heroes like Ben Tennyson." He turned to gaze at the statue. "Wherever you are, Ben, know that you've earned a place among the Magic Knights of the Clover Kingdom. And we haven't given up on finding you." As if in response, a brief flicker of green light played across the statue's Omnitrix. So brief that most missed it, but Asta saw, and smiled. In a laboratory beneath Magic Knight's headquarters, a team of researchers monitored a strange device, a combination of magical crystals and technology recovered from the Shadow Hand base. At its center pulsed a small green light, its pattern matching the Omnitrix's distinctive signature. "Signal still active," one researcher reported to Julius, who had come for his daily update. "Weak but stable." "Direction?" the Wizard King asked. "Uncertain. Dimensional coordinates aren't precise. But it's definitely out there. Somewhere." Julius smiled. "Keep monitoring. And continue the development of the dimensional beacon. If Ben Tennyson is out there, we'll find a way to bring him home, his real home, or back to us, whichever he chooses." "Yes, Lord Julius." As the Wizard King left, the green signal pulsed once more, slightly stronger this time. Somewhere across the dimensions, the Omnitrix continued its work, adapting, evolving, waiting for its wielder to once again declare, its hero time. In a realm between dimensions, a familiar green light pulsed rhythmically. Within it, suspended in neither time nor space, Ben Tennyson drifted, unconscious but alive, the Omnitrix glowing steadily on his wrist as it repaired itself and protected its user. On its display, coordinates slowly formed, not for Earth, not for the Clover Kingdom, but for somewhere new. Somewhere that needed a hero. The light pulsed brighter, and the drift became more purposeful. A new adventure was beginning. But that's a story for another time. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.